Hello everyone, welcome to What If Goku Was an Avatar and Becomes Firebender Part 5. Before we start, please go support Okansino for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. The Golden Warrior. The world was a peaceful place to live. The Avatar has been ruling the Republic City and restoring the lost culture of the Airbenders. It has passed 12 years since the angered spirits destroyed the Chin village. Almost everyone from the Avatar gang had kids. The Avatar himself has 3 kids. His older kid is a non-bender boy called Bumi, a waterbender girl named Kaya, and the youngest of all Tenzin, which has not shown any signal of any bending yet. Zuko and Mai had one daughter, Izumi, a non-bender girl. Unlike her mother, she smiles too much and is closer to her Aunt Ty Lee. In secret, she had heard the stories of her mother, her Aunt Ty Lee and her late Aunt Azula, who Ty Lee described as a firebender prodigy, a perfectionist, but overall, a loyal person. When Zuko and Mai found out there was little they could do, but since the girl had never heard anything bad about her, Zuko decided to leave that image of Azula to his daughter. Ty Lee also talked about Goku, the friendly warrior who was as loyal as Azula, but Izumi was never that interested in him. Sokka and Suki finally married but never had kids. Suki moved to Republic City and became the second in command of the police force, only behind Toph. Sokka and Suki had a strange dynamic as they were always on the job and that's where they normally saw each other and their house was only used to sleep. To everyone's surprise, except Aang, Toph ended up having 2 kids named Lynn and Sayan. The father. It's Vegeta, what? Said the whole group when she finally introduced the 2 girls to her friends. She had used the excuse of vacations to give birth to her kids and due to the armor, she hid her pregnancy. How could you? Wow, so that's why you and Suki haven't had kids yet. What? Screamed Sokka angered. One thing was you befriend the twins, but this is just. Look, I wanted to present my girls to you because you are my friends. But it took all this time to let you know because of this. Toph pointed at Katara. At the moment, they were at Toph's house in Republic City. Vegeta was not at the moment and his absence was the reason why she asked them to meet his daughters that day. Lynn was 6 years old and was outside playing with the other kids and Sayan was still a baby and sleeping in her crib. Aang was still smiling and finally commented, I think they are adorable. I only hope they won't be trying to conquer the world. And speaking of, where is he? At the academy. Zuko looked at the kids outside. Is she an earthbender? Lynn is. Zuko smiled at Toph. It's good that you are happy. Yeah, I feel the same as Zuko. Congratulations, Toph. And, well, sorry you had to feel like you needed to keep this from us. Thank you, guys. Toph said, and Zuko and Aang hugged her. After watching Lynn playing outside with Kaya, Katara gave up and smiled and congratulated Toph, followed by Sokka. Toph was walking the streets with some of her men from the police behind. Aang appeared and stopped her. What are you doing here, Aang? I told you. I have this under control. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't get involved. But, if what those victims say it's true. We are not dealing with a normal criminal. Fine. Follow me, twinkled toes. Toph, I am 40 years old. Do you think you can stop with the nicknames? Afraid not. After walking for a while, Aang decided to break the silence. Where is Vegeta? At the academy. I am surprised that a warrior like him does not want to work in the police. You will never approve of his methods. I guess not. And the kids. With him. He is trying to teach Lynn how to fight. She is only 6. Azula started her training before that age. I don't see the problem. Toph, Aang and the policemen entered a family restaurant. At one of the tables was a man wearing a water tribe coat. And in front of the table were 2 men protecting him as guards. Toph walked close to the table and the 2 guards got closer. Toph stopped and smirked. You already know who I am. Do you really want to do that? The 2 guards looked at each other. Nobody realized that the 2 guards were shaking non-stop, no one, except Toph. The guards let her pass and Toph now pointed at the man at the table. Avatar. The Fire Twins is uploaded only on Wattpad and fanfiction.net. You are under arrest, Yakone. What is Republic City coming to? It used to be where a man could enjoy his lunch in peace. Toph moved to send the table fly and captured Yakone. Republic City is whatever he wants to be. He created and you have to follow his rules, like it or not. Said Toph pointing at Aang. So, this is a dictatorship. The other policemen took Yakone and his men. We have dozens of witnesses, Yakone. We know what you are. I've beaten every trumped-up charge you have brought against me. And I'll beat this one too. Take him away. The restaurant went back to peace and the Avatar was left thinking. Toph appeared behind him when Yakone and his men were sent to prison. I sometimes think that Vegeta's methods are better. Especially with people like him. Toph. Killing him is not the solution. It was the solution with Furiza. Said Toph while walking away. When Toph arrived at her home, she looked back out the window and to the sky. A week later, the trial for Yakone was happening. Toph was surprised that Vegeta was there. Unknown to her was that Aang asked TomTom for Vegeta to be there. They thought that Toph needed her husband's support. Vegeta was there because he wanted to get out of his boredom. The training with the metal benders had become stale and his daughters were too young to get proper training. He had been training with the goal to become a Super Saiyan like Kakaroto, but he still has not achieved that power. Unfortunately, the whole trial was as boring as Vegeta could expect. He knew the trial would be a mockery. It won't be like the ones done by the Saiyans or the ones done in Frieza's army. All the babble was very boring. They repeat the same thing over and over again, perhaps to make you believe that what they say is true. They said he had a technique to make other people do what they want using the opponent's blood. But the other part said it can only be used at full moon. The Vegeta, the technique was not worthy. It seems made for people to only enjoy torture and not fighting. It has the disadvantage of only using it at full moon, making it less interesting to Vegeta. At least the Azera transformation gave you a boost of power. After a few hours, the counselors, who worked as judges, came back and said. Only the South Water swordsman was standing up. Councilman Sokka will now deliver the verdict. Announce a man. In my years, I have encountered people born with rare and unique bending abilities. I once bested a man with my trusty boomerang who was able to firebend with his mind. Sokka turned to see Toph standing at the right of the hall with some policemen at her sides. Even metalbending was considered impossible for all of history until our esteemed chief of police, Toph Bifrong, single-handedly developed the skill. Then the councilman frowned and turned to see Yakone. The overwhelming amount of testimony and evidence has convinced this council that Yakone is one of these unique benders and he exploited his ability to commit these heinous crimes. We find Yakone guilty of all charges and sentence him to life in prison. Sokka pounds his gavel to seal the decision. The people started to talk and Vegeta thanked them that it was over so he could leave the place. But then called Yakone stood up and Sokka started to contort and his face looked in pain. All the councilmen began to contort in the same way. Toph looked at how the councilmen were attacked by Yakone and tried to use her cables to stop him. She could have just run and hit him, but she hesitated as she did not want to kill him. That hesitation was enough for Yakone to turn on her and make her contort as well. Vegeta looked at Toph and was in shock for a moment. Yakone turned to his back and now the entire hall was under the control of Yakone and his blood bending. He laughed as the Avatar, who was believed to be the most powerful person, was at his knees. Vegeta saw everything and although the blood bending was affecting him and could not move, what he saw was much worse. Yakone turned to see Toph and made her contort more, she was forced to take the key of Yakone's handcuffs. Vegeta saw how Toph was in pain and how she was floating in the air without her consent. Vegeta saw her wife suffering. "No one touch my Toph," screamed Vegeta with rage and to the surprise of everyone, a great pressure of air came out of him and it caused Yakone to fall and lose concentration. He saw the man that shouted and got scared. A man with a golden aura around him, strange yellow hair and green eyes. Some little lightning bolts appeared around him. Toph saw him and quickly, metal bent a small scrap of metal and blindfolded Yakone. Vegeta went closer, but Ong tried to stop him, but he didn't see to put attention until Toph spoke in a firm voice. "I am okay. Do you think that scum could do something to me?" Vegeta turned to see her and Toph only smirked. Toph left them and earth-bend the floor to trap Yakone. "I am taking away your bending. For good." After Ong was done, Vegeta, still in his golden figure, pointed at Yakone and an energy ball was forming in his hand. "Vegeta, stop. He is no longer a threat," said Sokka. "And what if I kill him? What are you going to do? What any of you can do." Toph stood in front of Vegeta. "He is not worthy." He calmed himself and his hair turned black again. Toph could not help but smirk. After a few hours, the hall was empty. Yakone was taken to prison and the only two who remained there were Sokka and Ong. I would never think I would say this, but I am glad Vegeta was here. Ong did not answer Sokka, which made the Water Tribe man turn to him. "What is wrong?" I am happy about Vegeta's change. But everyone thought that we should have killed him. Even back in the war, when I searched for guidance from my past self, they always advised me to kill. Ong sat in one of the broken chairs. Sokka did the same and sat in front of him. I would lie to you if I told you that sometimes I do think that killing them could be the answer. But that is not my decision to make. Nor the past avatars to make, but yours. Ong turned to see him with a weak smile, and Sokka continued. You want to restore balance, but adding more violence to the violence does not sound like real balance. And you can understand that, even when the others were blinded by vengeance, you seek the solution. The Avatar smiled fully and hugged his friend. Thank you Sokka. The gift for hard work. What do you mean that she is recovering? Screamed Toph at Vegeta while he was making push-ups. She is your daughter, she is too weak. She is only 7, she needs to train, and that will help her be stronger. I told you that she won't be training with you anymore. No daughter of mine will be a weakling. We agreed that if they were earthbenders, I would be the one training them. Vegeta stopped training and stood up, looking at Toph. Around them were some metal benders still trying to make Vegeta go down. Behind a wall was Lynn, hearing how her mother was screaming at her father. She had a splint on her forearm and a small band-aid on her left cheek. Her eyes were full of tears. In her mind, she thinks that she is the reason for the fight. Then she heard her mother saying something she did not want to believe. I am going to take my family and the girls to Republic City. And you will not see them again. Vegeta frowned at her. He wanted to shout and give a piece of his mind. The last descendants of the Saiyajins should be strong, but he felt the presence of his daughter and decided against it. Toph turned her heels, and while walking, she screamed. Lynn, come out, we are leaving. Lynn came out of the building and walked to her mother, looking back to see her father a few times. When they crossed the academy's door, a big bright yellow light showed up inside. 14 years had passed. Republic City Police Chief is still Toph. Suki left the job to become the chief of Kyoshi Island. Lynn has grown up with guilt but with a goal in her mind. She remembered her father as a strict but fair man. He wanted to always do things right and prepare for any future battle. He always imposed order. Even the Avatar itself respect him. She wants to train and become strong, like her father, so she will one day find him and he will be proud of her. She arrived at her house and saw her little sister, Sayan, already there. She loved her sister, but she knew that she was going on the wrong path. She was with the other two guys, and in the center of the table was jewelry scattered. Sue, what are you doing at home? You should be at school. Haha. You almost look like a real cop. Lynn crossed her arms and looked at Sayan for her answer. What? Are you going to tell mom? It's not like she is going to care. From where did you get all that stuff? It fell off the back of a truck. Answered one of the guys with Sayan. Lynn frowned when the answer did not come from her sister. What are you doing hanging out with this trash? Sayan jumped from her seat and looked directly at her sister's eyes. Do not call my friends that way. Lynn was still in the same pose, but Sayan took the bag after placing the jewelry inside it and walked to the door. Come on guys. Let's leave. Lynn looked at her sister and stopped her before she crossed the door. Sue, stop. Take your hands off of me. You are wasting your life with that scum you call friends. At least I have friends and life. The door was closed with a big thud. A year later. Lynn finally became a police officer. She kept training, not only her bending, but also her investigation capacity. She was patrolling the streets with a police car on a day that looked like any other. Suddenly the radio sounded asking for reinforcements, and just when she responded to the call, a car that met the description of the culprit for the robbery that was just announced, passed. Lynn stepped on the gas and followed the car. She turned on the siren, and the people started to move away to stay safe. The persecution lasted just a couple of streets until Lynn used her metal cables to take out one rear tire. The car of the culprits crashed and stopped. From the car, two guys started to run away, but they were captured by Lynn using her metal cables again. Leave them alone, Sue. With wide eyes, Lynn saw her sister coming out of the car. So, your scum friends are the Terra Triad. Stealing. I didn't steal anything. I just drove the car. I owed my friends a favor. It's not a big deal. They are the Terra Triad. Trash like them are the reason for many deaths in the city. I can't let you get away from this. Oh really? And what are you going to do, officer? Arrest me? Sayan mocked her sister with confidence. She has grown up to become some kind of celebrity, and the Terra Triad knew about her immunity from the police and how easy they could manipulate her. They only showed her some things that piqued her interest, and what she was looking for was something that would thrill her. When Sayan turned and walked away, she was stopped by her sister. The metal cables line surprised her, and her head got heated. She took a knife from her sleeves and broke the metal cables, which whiplashed back to her sister. The sound of metal cables ripping skin and the painful scream of Lynn stopped Sayan's escape. Lynn tried to ignore the pain and used a crashed car's door to capture her sister. Sayan fell, but she was scared after watching her sister's cheek covered in blood. Inside Toph's office were her two daughters. Sayan was pouting and Lynn was with a straight face. Toph never thought that she would be in this position. In her youth, Toph may have had some fun with the Ong and the others. She may have scammed people, but those people were also scammers. But her younger daughter was part of a criminal organization. She is her daughter and does not want to see her in jail. But then, why was her own sister, of all people, arrested? She could have made it look like the other two were the only ones in the car. Toph walked behind her desk and pointed at her daughters. What were you thinking? And what were you thinking? You two had put me in an impossible position. You are mad at me? She is the one running around with scum criminals. This is all your fault. It's my fault that you were part of a crime. Alright, enough, screamed Toph. Her head started to ache for all the problems that were happening. This is what we are going to do. Sue, you will leave the city as soon as possible. What? Where am I supposed to go? You will stay with your grandparents. Lynn, give me the arrest report. Lynn gave the report to her mother with a suspicious look. She thought his mother would want to change something or put it away until her sister left him, so her file will continue to show her connection to Terra's triad. But what Toph did was something Lynn could not believe. Toph took the file and ripped it apart. "Mom, what are you doing? You can't cover this up. There were witnesses. I am the chief of the police. I can't have a daughter in jail." So, once again, she gets to do whatever she wants and there are no consequences. Toph's head was exploding at that moment. She put her hands on her head and sighed. "This is our only option to save our family." Lynn stood up suddenly, frowning at her mother. She walked and opened the door and said to both women remaining in the room, "Our family was destroyed the moment you cast out our father." Lynn left the place slamming the door. Sayan looked at the ground, but then she made a pouting expression. The next day Lynn went work like always, but without her mother's approval, she made a raid over the Terror Triad. Toph watched as the jails filled up, and although the public eye believed her, inside the police station, everyone knew who was responsible and began to admire Lynn more and more. Toph started to question her own decisions. Her job took a lot of her time from her family, and when Lynn screamed at her about Vegeta, she felt guilty. She hasn't forgotten him, and from time to time she wonders what he is doing, although the answer is always the same: training. A week passed, and Toph finally got a letter from her parents. Unfortunately, they told them that Sayan never arrived. Toph was worried. She had years without training, and she had lost the power she once had. Her maternal instincts asked her to look for her, but then she turned to see her other daughter. Lynn has done her job almost perfectly, without asking for anything in return, just that the rest of the people try to do the same. Due to the rampage of Lynn arresting people, Toph's work was easier, but now she is always inside her office due to all the bureaucratic stuff she must do. At night, when she was walking back home, Toph suddenly felt two energies. She could not believe it and stopped walking. She tried to calm herself, but a smile was on her face. Small pink people were sitting in a circle. They were eating some kind of fruit. They wore red pants, on their torso wore armors that covered only one shoulder, and under, a white shirt. The older ones had, around their mouths, antennas longer than the young. Of the people around, there was only one that looked odd. That person was wearing similar clothes, but unlike the others, his skin was not as pink and he had black hair. That person was eating up a mountain of fruits close to him. When that person finally ate all the food, he stood up. "Thank you for everything. I will never forget any of you and all your help, but I have to go." The pink people went around him and hugged him. "Please say my thanks to Master Pabara." The pink people left nodding their heads. The man walked towards a capsule with a strange emblem on the front. He opened the capsule and sat inside. Goku started to press a button and a voice sounded. "Arya say, Zalt say, Burenchi say, Waku say for plus 25, Bep say." Almost 4 hours later, the man was still pressing the button. Wakusei for plus 79, Wakusei for plus 448, Wakusei for plus 17, Y Dorado say, Chikik, M plus to say, Nameku say. When he finally heard the word he wanted, he stopped. Finally, then he pressed the biggest button and the ship closed and started to fly away. Snai was with the rest of his people. He still feels a lot of energy, and that is why he was following the steps of the previous great patriarch when he was still young. He helped others with their problems and guided them to help the planet become full of life. The small Nameku Seijin was running around over a small hill when he saw how from the skies, a star-like fell. He got scared and ran to tell the great patriarch about it. The people started to run and hide, and a small group of warrior race Nameku Seijin went to the scene. And to their surprise, the great patriarch went with them. They refused at first, but Snai imposed himself. He had a good feeling about it. When the group finally arrived, they saw the ship opening. A pointy black hair showed up and a familiar face appeared. The Nameku Seijin calmed down and smiled. "Welcome back to Nameku say." "Hi." Goku smiled at them and flew towards them. Snai hugged Goku when he was close. "Hey, I also missed all of you. Let's go to the close village." Goku nodded and followed the Nameku Seijins. At the village, Goku was sitting eating some fruits from the place that the Nameku Seijins didn't know was edible. Goku would wish to eat some meat, but he did not know if they would have a problem with that because he knew that they wanted to make the planet to be as live as possible. After the small feast, Goku went and talked with Snai. "I want to ask for a small favor. Don't say any other word, my friend." Snai smiled, and from the skies, 6 different Nameku Seijin arrived, each of them had a Dragon Ball in their hands. When the Nameku Seijins left the Dragon Balls on the floor, they bowed respectfully toward Goku. They knew that he was the one that defeated Lord Frieza. Everybody gathered around the Dragon Balls, and Goku was standing in front, next to Snai. Then the old Nameku Seijin raised his hands and said, "Akarado po Parunga, Parito Para." The sky turned dark, while clouds started to form. Then the mighty dragon showed up. "You have united the Dragon Balls. I will grant you 3 wishes. Now state your wishes." Goku stared at the dragon with his eyes and mouth wide open. Then he turned to Snai, who chuckled at Goku's reaction. "Could you please ask for Azula to be revived?" Snai nodded at Goku while smiling, then turned to the dragon. Opurunga Papito Tonga Azula. The red eyes of the dragon. Goku walked towards her and hugged Azula. I took the liberty of restoring her body in gratitude for fighting for the peace of Namekusei. Goku broke the hug and looked at the dragon. Thank you. Snai walked to Goku. You still have 2 wishes. I know that one of your wishes will be to return to your planet. Yeah, the ship I used is only for 1 person. But, before that, Azula stopped Goku from answering that he did not need another wish. Goku? You looked older. How much time has passed since my death? Oh, 37, no, 38 years. 38 years. Azula turned at Snai and he felt great pressure as if he was under attack. Then Azula finally said, tell the dragon that I want him to turn Goku younger so he will be at my same age. Snai nodded nervously. Opuringa Kopu Donpin Karu Goku, Kitato Azula. Goku's body was covered by a bright light for a few seconds and then it went back to normal. Neither the Namekusei nor Goku saw any difference, but Azula looked at him and nodded. She turned to Snai and said, we are ready for the last wish. Snai nodded, now calmed as the murderous energy was no longer around Azula. The great patriarch turned to the dragon and said, Opurunga Goku to Azula Donranya Pipen Karu Tuzin. The eyes of the dragon light up. Goku and Azula bowed with respect, using the Fire Nation greeting. Then they disappeared from Namekusei. The next thing that Goku and Azula saw was the Tuzin city. They were standing close to the forest. Azula turned to Goku, held his hand, and pulled him close to her. Azula closed her eyes and kissed Goku, putting her arms around his neck. Goku was at first surprised, but then he too closed his eyes and kissed back. You are Saiyajins, not my firebender twin. There is nothing bad with us being together. Notes before the next saga. This last chapter was more of various ideas together. Kind of like the first chapters. Honestly, when I started to write the story I thought to put Goku and Ty Lee together and then make his kid and Azula's future kid be some kind of Korra's enemy. As if they wanted to take over the Fire Nation and Korra would go and help Zuko. But the pair of Ty Lee and Goku never worked for me. Toph and Goku could be a good pairing, but I don't see Goku being Lynn or Sayan's father or Gohan and Goten being their replacements. If you thought that Azula and Goku were going to be together since chapter 3. At the time, I was trying to create a possessive Azula, not in a romantic or yandier kind of way, but more of the kind that feels like she's the only one who can play with certain things. A girl that thinks that everyone is her play toy, only to make Goku her real ally as someone that was always with her no matter what. But then I started to like the idea of them together as a couple. The problem was to try to make it look like it made sense to the characters. That's why it would take them time because they grow up as siblings, but once the secret was out, Azula started to really change the sibling love into romantic feelings. I hope I did it correctly. Another thing I wanted to talk about or write here was my decision on using Japanese words, like the names of the planets and the names of all the people from the Saiyan and Frieza saga. I really wanted to use the original pronunciation so it could sound foreign, like from another world. Someone said that I should have skipped the Saiyajin and the Frieza saga and made my own characters for them to fight. But honestly, I don't like Ox. In fact, there are way too many Ox. One was the general that teaches guerrilla tactics. Snai is kind of another, I created the name, but he is supposed to be the Namekian that Vegeta killed in the original series. Is this the end? No, yes, kind of. I am going to continue the story. If you are reading on Wattpad, the next chapter will be next to this one. If you are in fanfic.net then I will create another one that will be with the tags of Dragon Ball Z and the Legend of Korra. I am kind of nervous because I tried to write a fanfic about Korra and Street Fighter, but it seems that it was not read by many. I was hoping to continue that one, but it seems that the people are not interested. Maybe later. I would rename it if that happens. I will try to start writing it in a few weeks, but I am still in process of thinking about how things should play. In the next part, I will discuss a little about the next saga, so if you don't want spoilers, I advise you to not continue reading. If you are reading, it means that you want info about the next saga. I will give you spoilers, but there are not many, and I will ask you something, and if you answer it, I will appreciate it immensely. First the spoilers. Gohan and Goten will be there. In fact, the story will be more about Gohan. Like how the Majin Buu saga started. But, I am not going to Majin Buu right away. Now, Gohan and Goten will have different names. Because I could not cheat as I did with Goku. The names I chose will make sense for the story, and I will hold the same meaning. Their personality won't change at all. This is my explanation for them. Gohan's new name is Ozai. Just like in Dragon Ball Z, he will be named after Goku's parental figure. Ozai was the name Azula wanted to give him the name out of respect, and Goku agreed with it. Goten's new name is Sazan. Yep, the same name as the Fire Lord that started the 100 Years' War. Goten's name is a pun on Goku's name. Goku means understanding the sky where the Ku means sky, and the 10 in Goten means bigger sky. Now knowing that I correlate the idea that Sazan is also the name of a comet. You see the relation. Understanding the sky a comet. Or it can stay as Goten. What do you say? So yeah, that is my spoilers. Talking about names, you will be wondering, why do Lynn and Sayan have the same names? The reason is that basically, in Dragon Ball, Bulma named her kids. If Vegeta had done it, he may have given them vegetable names. That's why I left the same because basically, Toph named them. Now my questions for you. 1. Do you want me to write a little about Kid Teen Gohan Ozai, or do you want me to go straight to Teen Young Adult Gohan? The first is Gohan around 7 to 13 years old, training with her mom and dad, and meeting people that are friends with his parents, maybe 3 chapters. The second is going straight to Korra, so he will be a young adult between 17 to 18 years old. Do you want a romantic pair for him? If yes, you can choose between Korra, Azami, Asuka or Opal. In my opinion, Korra, Asami and Asuka have what it takes to attract a Saiyan because they are women of strong character. The problem is that we need to break the Osamu-Korra couple if one of them is picked. But it can make that other characters have different outcomes. Opal doesn't have the character a Saiyan would want, but judging by how Videl is in DB Super, maybe the strong character woman only applies to pure-blood Saiyans. Another spoiler is that I am planning on somebody having a crush on Ozai Gohan. Another note. The Korra series will be kind of difficult because I am really planning on Majin Buu, but the problem is that there is no way to go for the Dragon Balls anymore. And that the KOs are not in this story. But also let me tell you that I am not planning beyond Majin Buu. Maybe I will, but I don't think so there will be no Dragon Ball Super, so no Beerus. Maybe a Dragon Ball GT, where Pan, Ozai's daughter is the Avatar. If that's the case, more reason to choose Opal. Because the next Avatar needs to be an earthbender. No weakling allowed. Duzin City State is one of the most pacific and prolific. The security in the city it's second to none. The place it's one of the strictest countries, but you can still see kids playing around. And even when the city has opened its borders to commerce, they still have an immense nationalism feeling, and they are reluctant to buy any outside product. The Metal Bending Academy, now known as the Academy, is a place to learn not only bending, but also language, history, math, geography, and other subjects. The Academy became one of the few schools that offered education to all the citizens born inside its borders. The Twin Fire Manor, it's where the most influential family of Tuzin lives. People said they are direct descendants of the original Fire Twins, who died long ago. The manor is situated at the skirts of the city. Inside the manor were the husband and wife, Goku and Azula, supervising the training of their kid, Ozai. The father, a charismatic man with hair that seems to be in a perpetual state, it's the one helping his son to learn how to fight. The mother, a beautiful woman with a stern face, it's watching everything with a smirk. A mother who is proud of her kid but also concerned about his behavior. Ozai is 11 years old and has long hair that falls below his shoulders. His hair it's as revel as his father's hair. Wearing a crimson-red robe with a belt in a wine color. Although the kid was born a non-bender, he was expected to learn the firebender's fighting style. The kid could mimic the steps to perfection, but to her mother and father, it was not enough. It was expected of him to always be perfect in studies and combat. It was expected of him to defeat his opponents with a clear difference. He was expected to take every fight seriously. And that's what made his mother concerned. Ozai has been set up to participate in a combat tournament in the academy. Ozai participated as he was asked and defeated many other kids that were older and taller than him, but lacked the strength and discipline that Ozai has. Unfortunately, in the final battle, he did not behave as expected. The fight was easy for Ozai, but the opponents started to scream and cry at the pain of just one punch. Ozai was concerned for his opponent's well-being and got close to help. The moment Ozai looked concerned, Azula frowned, and Goku facepalmed. The other kid used the moment, grabbed Ozai by the shirt, and threw him in the hopes of taking him out of the ring and winning. Ozai recovered quickly from the throw, and when he was at the edge of the ring, he used his hands to remain inside. He ran to kick his opponent in the chest, making the other kid fall from the ring. The place erupted in joy as they saw Ozai winning. A prodigy, some would say. The skills presented by Ozai to react quickly were something celebrated by everyone. Only the loser and his parents will be disappointed, or that is what was expected. But there was a woman that was frowning, looking at the winner. Weak, it's what her mother called him. He was close to losing for showing weakness in the fight, and her mother let her son know that she expects he won't be like that again. She will not support having a weak son like her traitorous brother. Weakness brings insecurity. Insecurity opens the doors for you to be deceived. I have seen how people have been deceived into betraying their family. Said Azula to her son with a calm voice, but Ozai could tell that she was furious. After that, Ozai spent a lot of time training after school with his father. Goku thought that he was lacking in learning about reading the opponent's energy, so he won't be deceived easily. Unfortunately for Ozai, his father's approach to things was more conceptual, which made it difficult for him to understand. Sitting next to the pond in their backyard, where some turtle ducks live, and meditating to feel the energy within and outside him was something he still didn't understand. Although he understands the theory his father was preaching, he lacks an understanding of the real world. All living thing has energy inside. Benders use it to control the elements. But a non-bender can also use it to expel the energy into an attack, said Goku to his son, while showing him a ball of energy in his hands. Your Aunt Toph's an expert about it, as she uses this energy to enhance her bending and see with her earth bending. Ozai nodded at the explanations and tried multiple times to replicate his father's attacks, but he could not do it. Since he was very little, he wished to learn so he could fly like his parents do when they spar with each other. Due to this, Ozai started to perform worse at training. Overthinking about trying to feel his and the enemy's energy. In one of his training, Azula could not stand it and decided to manage the training herself. Thinking that Goku was giving their son too much credit, she decided that he would only learn about energy with a direct approach. Ozai. You know what's the problem? Asked her mother standing in front of him. Ozai was standing straight, looking firm, but he was nervous. That I cannot feel the energy? Answered Ozai, but Azula shook her head. Not exactly. It's that you haven't trained with someone stronger than you. When was the last time you spar with your father or me? A year, maybe, answered Ozai. Azula nodded and continued, do you think we were serious in our combat? Surely you have seen the training that your father and I have. Ozai nodded nervously. Azula turned to him, even when young, we always trained with stronger people than us. That is what you need. Azula smirked and turned into a fighting stance, you will spar with full force with your mom. Azula ran and punched her son in the stomach and spin kicked him. Ozai flew back and landed back first into a tree. At the property, an old female entered. The old lady looked younger than her actual age. She was walking full of energy for a woman around her late 70s. One of the aides received her and took her to Goku, who was watching the training. Goku was watching everything with crossed arms, but with concern about his son. He knew that her wife was doing this training to help their kid and he trusted his son that he would learn eventually. But he did not think this was the right way to do it. Suddenly, the old lady went close to him and spoke, hey Goku, what are you doing? Oh Ty Lee. Good to see you. Goku got close and hugged her. Wanna sit? Asked Goku, and Ty Lee shook her head. I am not that old. My legs can still support me, said the old lady with a smile. So, where is little Ozai? I bring him some presents, asked Ty Lee. Oh, he is currently sparring with Azula, answered Goku while pointing at where the sparring was. Ty Lee turned her head quickly, worried about the little kid. She found him on the ground. She saw how Ozai was trying to avoid his mother's attacks, but without too much luck. Watching Ozai beaten up by his mother, who was fighting at full speed, scared Ty Lee. She saw a loud punch in Ozai's cheek that made Ty Lee flinch, but Goku only facepalmed when Ozai did not protect himself from the attack. You should stop it, said Ty Lee, but she saw Goku not wanting to do anything. She ran and stood in the middle of Azula and Ozai. It's enough, screamed Ty Lee. Azula seemed calm, not angered or anything, which confused Ty Lee. Wasn't this some sort of punishment? Azula looked at her son, that was having difficulty standing up. Very well. Ozai, go and take a shower. Ask one of the aides to watch for your injuries. Ozai nodded with some tears in his eyes. There was no bleeding, but some parts of his face began to swell. When Ozai was finally with an aide, Azula turned to see Ty Lee with a smile. No time, no seeing you. A few hours later, the family ate dinner with their guest. Ozai had a patch on his left cheek due to swelling from a blow. But outside that, he was alright. He was even eating like his father, fast and in enormous amounts. So, what brings you here, Ty Lee? Asked Azula. Well, Ty Lee was still worried by little Ozai, but he looked alright, outside the injuries. I got a call from some cities that there are some sort of delinquents using Kai blocking and asked for my help. And once in the town, I decided to give you a visit. Are they in Tuzin? No, but they have a presence in all the Republic City and some Earth Kingdom towns. Azula nodded at the information. But Goku got an idea. Ty Lee, I was wondering if you could help Ozai to learn Kai blocking. Ty Lee's eyes widened, you want me to train your kid? Azula also frowned at her husband, but he answered. Well, he is having problems in our training and we want him to learn how to feel the energy. I thought you could help in that regard. Azula thought about the idea of her husband and she liked it. The old lady did not know how to answer. I would love to. Ozai only looked from person to person while they were talking. When they said he would train with Ty Lee, he smiled. The old lady's heart got warm. Unfortunately, she had to tell them, but I will not stay too long. I will be leaving tomorrow for the Kyoshi Island. You can take him, that is not a problem, said Azula sternly. He got stale and unable to improve because he lacks experience. Oh well, in that case, Ty Lee turned to see Ozai, whose eyes were full of light. To him, meeting the world was something he had never thought of but still fascinated him. Growing up with the stories of his parents, the prospect of him also watching Amashu, Ba Sing Se, and, more importantly, the Fire Nation. Ty Lee smiled at Ozai, alright. you better be ready for tomorrow. Ozai smiled and nodded at the confirmation. And Ty Lee was touched by Ozai's smile. The next day Ozai was waiting for Ty Lee in the main room. He was dressed in his training robes and a backpack on his shoulder. Ty Lee got closer and patted his shoulder. Traveling light, good thinking. Where are we heading? Asked Ozai. First, I need to talk with somebody on the Kyoshi Island. From there, well, we will see where we need to head, said the old woman and Ozai nodded. Azula arrived a few seconds later and got closer to her son. Do not fail us. Train and learn everything that helps you. Ozai nodded seriously. Azula grabbed him from the shoulders and hugged him awkwardly. Ozai returned the hug in a similar awkward way. Goku walked close, enjoy the trip and hope you can get stronger. Ozai nodded and said, yes. After that, Ozai left alongside Ty Lee. Kyoshi Island. Ozai stepped out of the ship. He looked around the place with wide open eyes. He saw some houses made of wood and all the people smalling all kinds of fishes. Behind him was Ty Lee, who only saw him with a warm smile. Ozai stopped to wait for Ty Lee to be with him and she finally arrived. A man got close. Ms. Ty Lee, the chief, let us know that you will be arriving and asked us to take you to her. But we were unaware you will have company. The man looked at Ozai, frowning. The red color of his clothes was something he did not like and prejudice was something that had not died out. Ty Lee smiled at the man, he is my niece and is coming with me. And if something or someone mistreats him, I will be in a terrible mood. The threat of Ty Lee did not match the calming and smiling face of the older woman, but it was strong enough to make the man gulp. After that minor incident, Ty Lee and Ozai went to the central part of the village where the Kyoshi was. The small boy took his head from the carriage and saw the Avatar Kyoshi statue. It looked so big and imponent. The place was in the past a small village of some houses. Now it became a different place where only the Kyoshi trained. No men were allowed except for any diplomatic visit. The older woman tapped the boy's shoulder so he could sit down again. Once we stopped, please, remain next to me at all moments. At least, until I tell you that you can move freely. Ozai nodded and remained sat inside the carriage. When they got out of the carriage, Ozai looked around but remained in his place, walking next to Ty Lee. They entered the most prominent house. As soon as they entered, Ozai saw how different girls practiced some fighting style with fans in their hands. The girls stopped practicing when they saw the newcomers, especially Ty Lee, who had become a minor celebrity inside the Kyoshi warriors. But their faces were also of confusion when they saw the kid next to her. The instructor was a woman in their 30s who went to Ty Lee. Please do not stop practicing, said Ty Lee with a smile. The instructor smiled and nodded, you hear her, I want you to keep practicing the move again while I speak, Ms. Ty Lee. Ms. Ty Lee. Let me take you with Chief Suki, said the instructor, but Ty Lee stopped her. No need, I know the way, said Ty Lee when she was about to keep walking, but stopped when she remembered what she needed to talk about with Suki. In fact, could I ask you for a favor? Of course, said the woman enthusiastically. Could you let this young man train with you? This kid? But Ms. Ty Lee, the Kyoshi training is only for women. Really? I remember a story when the chief teaches a man about Kyoshi techniques. But that was different. He was Sokka, ex-leader of the Republic City, and the hero who helped the Avatar. He becomes that later on, but when he trained with the Kyoshi warriors, he was still only a young man, not older than Ozai here. Who? Asked the instructor wide-eyed when hearing the name. Ozai, this young man. The instructor looked at the kid and took a deep breath. Very well, thank you, said the old lady while smiling. She then turned to see Ozai, and while close to him, she said, please wait for me and do not hurt any of them. Ozai nodded and Ty Lee walked out of the room to another room. When Ty Lee left the room, Ozai turned to see the girls and the instructor and most looked at him with mistrust. Only two behaved differently and giggled when he saw them. The instructor clapped to get the attention of everybody. Okay, he is a guest from Miss Ty Lee. I guess we can show them a little about our fighting. It may help, as none of you had fought with someone with a different style. Ozai smiled and bowed respectfully to the girls, using the old Fire Nation sign. Meanwhile, the instructor smirked and some girls understood her plan. The only one against that idea was the leader of the young trainees, but she said nothing. Yan, what don't you go first? Said the instructor. The leader of the Kyoshi warrior in training stepped up. Listen closely, this will be a friendly match. Aim to put your opponent's shoulders touching the floor at the same time. Understood? Ozai and the girl named Lian nodded. Very well, go. Ozai did not wait a moment as he remembered his mother telling him he should end the combats quickly and efficiently. The instructor smirked as she waited for the young kid to start to run at her disciple. By watching the kid's robe's color, she concluded that he would be like the firebenders who ran to attack as soon as possible. Lian was waiting for a punch or a kick at her head, but suddenly the kid disappeared and then she felt falling and saw the ceiling. Ozai, instead of attacking her to knock her, decided to sweep her legs. She was surprised that the kid could do it fast enough for her to be unable to see when he made the sweeping kick. Then suddenly, he saw the kid in front of her giving her a hand to help her stand up. She smiled and took it. Once up, both bowed to each other with respect, using their different signs. The Kyoshi girl used the Earth Kingdom sign, and Ozai used the old Fire Nation sign. After that, the sparring continued. Meanwhile, inside the chief's room, Ty Lee talked with Suki. Ty Lee was walking from side to side while Suki was reading some papers. Out of the people from the reports, there were some girls from the Earth Kingdom. Interestingly, these girls were not good at another style of fighting, but primarily used kai blocking. Suki was nodding, and then she stopped suddenly. Wait, what are you insinuating? I've done my research. The number of people defecting from the Kyoshi warriors has increased, with the number of attacks having a similar pattern. These people are non-benders, and it seems they found the place to learn how to fight one-on-one against benders. Do you think that we teach them? Suki threw the papers to the floor and stood up suddenly, frowning at Ty Lee. I think that you did not keep your side of the promise and teach this only to trusted people. Ty Lee stopped walking and looked at Suki's eyes. You know the code of honor we work with. Yes, but I know you don't do anything about the people trying to leave, taking with them the techniques to do whatever they place, screamed Ty Lee with open arms. Just like you did when you traveled with Azula. Accused Suki while pointing at her with her fingers. Ty Lee frowned at Suki now. So, you did it because of pity revenge. We did nothing of the like. You, on the other hand. I used it while traveling with Azula, but she did not ask me to train her, nor my. They knew that it was a family technique. They knew the dangers, so they did not ask me to teach anyone. The two old women stared at each other for a few seconds, until Ty Lee spoke first. Even Azula told me that this was a mistake. Yeah. Maybe it was a mistake that you were Kyoshi. Maybe. Ty Lee turned around, walked to the door, and said quietly, maybe the mistake was to betray Azula in the first place. Ty Lee left the room with the door slam. Suki only let herself fall in her chair with her hands around her head. When Ty Lee arrived in the practice room and saw the girls talking with Ozai, it seemed they were intrigued by his hair, which had some parts that remained standing no matter what. Ty Lee sighed a little to let her bad energy disappear and smiled again. Ozai called the old woman, but everybody turned to see her. It's time to go, said Ty Lee. Ozai nodded, but the girls looked surprised. Lian was the one that got closer to Ty Lee. Excuse me, but we were wondering if you could teach us some of your moves. We are having troubles with the kai blocking training. Ty Lee's eyes went wide. The instructor didn't seem to be bothered for the request, so Ty Lee realized that the training seemed normal, even for young trainees. I am sorry. I won't be able to teach you. In fact, kai blocking won't be in your training anymore, said Ty Lee sternly. It was uncharacteristically for her, and Lian realized that. Ozai got closer to the older woman, waved at the girls, and left the building. While outside, the driver of the carriage was sleeping in the front. He got awakened by the slamming of the door. Ozai looked at Ty Lee, a little worried. Did something happen? Ty Lee tried to smile and shook her head. Nothing you should worry about. Well, maybe one thing. I won't be able to teach you kai blocking, but I will help you defend from it and understand it. The young boy nodded and looked at the window. So are we going back already? The old woman thought for a moment, and at that moment, she decided, no. I guess that you need to learn from it all started. Ozai did not understand the answer, but only raised an eyebrow and started to scratch his head. Ty Lee giggled a little when she saw that, as she saw Goku when he was his age. Ozai just kept thinking about the answer. Ty Lee looked at him while the carriage moved. You have until we arrive at the docks to guess where we are heading next. Ozai started to think. Maybe she was talking about where Kyoshi was born, but data about it is scarce, and as long as he knew, no one knew the exact place. But then he remembered that the Earthbender Avatar did not create the kai blocking, so it shouldn't be about her. He started thinking about the information about Ty Lee. He remembered she was part of a set of 7 girls. She escaped to the Fire Colonies, now known as the Republic, to be part of a circus. He tried to remember where the city was. But before he knew it, the carriage stopped. We arrived already? Ty Lee smiled. Ozai opened the door and helped Ty Lee to step out. Ty Lee looked around, and then she walked to one of the ships. It was not the biggest nor the smallest, it did not seem luxurious or poor. It was a well-maintained ship, with people around cleaning the ship while chatting. Ozai and Ty Lee walked to that ship, and the ship's captain saw them and ran to present himself to Ty Lee. Good afternoon, Miss Ty Lee. I am Captain Shen, at your service, said the man with a big smile while bowing. Hello. How much will it be for a trip that may take 2 or 3 days? Asked Ty Lee. No, please. We will take you for free. Are you sure? Of course. My crew will be an honor, said the man with a smile. Very well. We will take your word. We will need to go as fast as possible, said Ty Lee. That will be no problem. We are ready to leave at this very moment, said the man dramatically. Ty Lee nodded and walked to the ship. When both stepped at the boat, all the eyes were fixed on them. So, where are we going, Miss Ty Lee? asked the ship's captain. Ty Lee smirked and looked at Ozai, to the Fire Nation. Ozai's eyes lit up and a big smile was drawn on his face. The Fire Nation. The trip to the Fire Nation went without any problems. Ozai constantly looked to the sea, hoping to see land, the land of his parents finally. While on the ship, Ty Lee has though him about the Chai blocking principles. In order to fight against it, you need to know about it, said the old lady. Ozai was with his attention entirely on her. It presses specific points of your energy that will stop the flow temporarily. Depending on which point and how intense the pressure was, it's how effective it will be. A regular pressure point may only debilitate the flow of energy needed to do bending. Ozai raised his hand enthusiastically as if he was at school. Ty Lee smiled and said, yes. Mr. Ozai. Does this also apply to my father's techniques? Asked the young boy. Good question. Yes, it does. Remember that this blocks the energy flow. It means that it works not only with the energy needed for bending, but also with the energy you use to move. Obviously, these points will be in different zones of the body. Ozai nodded and Ty Lee continued. Very well. For the first exercise, you will receive my attack, so you will need to try to feel your energy flow before the attack, and once I block the energy of Ty Lee started to wonder how she should attack Ozai. Let's go for your arm. Any objection? Asked the old lady, and Ozai only shook his head. Good. After the attack, you will need to try to feel your energy flow to pinpoint the block. After that, Ozai sat on the floor in a lotus position and closed his eyes. He started to breathe and he focused his mind on the movement of the air inside him. Ty Lee could not help but smile after seeing the resemblance of Goku in the kid. She then Kai blocked Ozai's left arm. In Ozai's mind, the sensation of something off felt right away. He tried to remove it with force, but he failed. Ozai tried again and he was getting desperate. He started to use more and more energy. Ty Lee watched as the kid was struggling with the Chai blocking. She wanted to stop Ozai, but suddenly, Ozai shouted. Then she felt the aura around the kid changing. Ozai got desperate and used all his power to remove the block in his arm. He screamed louder, not only to expel and use his energy, but for the pain he got by forcing the energy to remove the block. The pain was too severe. It was unlike the pain from punches he had received. The pain was so intense that he fainted. Ty Lee ran, stopped him from hitting his head on the floor, and carried him to his bed. She was surprised and horrified at what happened to Ozai. She stayed at Ozai's side the whole time until he woke up. When he did, he tried to stand up but felt a small in his arm. Ty Lee smiled and asked him to lie down. What you did was very irresponsible. I told you only to feel the flow and the block and pinpoint, said the old lady. She looked sad, with her eyes crystallized by the small tears forming. I am sorry. I should have followed your instructions, said the young boy. He moved a little, and the pain in his arm was still very annoying, although not as strong as before. Ty Lee cleared the tears from her face and smiled at Ozai. Don't move that much. It will hurt you for a while, but the pain will eventually go away. Ozai nodded and asked, I thought the block would move away if I tried to. I don't know, I use all my power, you could say. The old woman only shook her head, trying to remove the block by applying more energy is a horrible strategy. Imagine a river, if you block its path, the water will find its way to go through naturally. But if you force with more pressure, the block may leave, but the water may split and may not be able to go back to its original path. Ozai frowned and think for a moment, does that mean I could have lost my arm completely? Ty Lee nodded and Ozai took his left arm with his right. The old lady gave him a small smile and said, I am sorry, I should have told you. No, it is my fault. You told me only to feel and pinpoint the block, said Ozai. He breathed out and looked at the ceiling. Your arm will go back to normal after a while when your energy starts to flow normally. Meanwhile, take a rest. We should be arriving in a couple of days, said Ty Lee with a smile while leaving. Ozai nodded and took a nap after that. 2 days passed, and to Ty Lee's surprise, Ozai recovered complete control of his left arm and the pain was no more. It was the morning and Ozai was still yawning, but he was fully awake when Ty Lee slammed the door open. What happened? Asked Ozai, but Ty Lee smiled and asked him to follow her. Ozai walked behind her and when she opened the door and walked to the ship's deck, Ozai saw it. A majestic statue, somehow rusty, of Azula. Welcome to the Fire Nation, said Ty Lee. Ozai's eyes lighted up and he ran to the edge to see the view. In the middle was a giant statue of Fire Lord Azula, Ozai's great-grandfather, and on each side were 2 dragons in copper color. Is that the Great Gates of Azula? Asked the young boy enthusiastically. It is. Although, it has not been used as a gate since the war ended. The whole place has become a commercial port, said the old woman. Ozai was still ecstatic about it. His smile never left. He was like that the entire time. Ozai walked out of the ship with Ty Lee. The place was busy. Many merchants are screaming, trying to get the passers-by's attention. People were buying different things from different merchants. People wearing red colors, although their clothing looked worn, Ozai ignored it. There was a big avenue in the center that seemed to take you directly to the volcano that was at the back. Tai Li woke Ozai from amazement and guided him to the Tai's residence. While walking, Ozai started to realize small details. People seemed not to trust anyone. They walked defensively, like waiting to be attacked at any moment. The houses looked like they could fall at any moment. There were people on the side of the street begging for money, and there was a side with people using a small banner in their hands that said, "For hire." It was heartbreaking for Ozai. He remembered the stories of his uncle Tom. He always told him that the Fire Nation was a prosperous place, beautiful, and with a great sense of honor. Unfortunately, the excellent Fire Nation his mother told him about is no longer there. After walking for a while, Tai Li talked with a man and asked Ozai to ride a rickshaw. Ozai obeyed, Tai Li sat next to him, and the man started pulling the rickshaw. The trip was fast, and they arrived at a big house. When Ozai and Tai Li entered, a bunch of kids ran and hugged her, and some other people around Ozai's parents' age were talking at the table. And there were a group of old ladies that looked like Tai Li. "Hi," everyone said Tai Li. "Auntie and Tai Li Granny," it's what some of the people screamed. The place was full of energy. The young man was followed by other young men younger than him while walking through the streets. He stopped walking and turned to see the men following him. "I will walk on my own for a while," said the man. He looked at the whole street with some disgust. The men bowed to him and walked back. Unknown to him, one of the men made a small signal to somebody who continued to follow him. The person who dismissed him was Iroh, prince of the Fire Nation and son of Princess Izumi. Due to his high importance, he was never alone. Many kidnapping attempts had happened since he was a kid, the number of attempts could only rival the killing attempt. Although unknown to him, in those many attempts, he was able to make friends with people living on the streets. He recognizes the problem of his nation. But he has always been told that his nation has a debt to pay to the world, that they needed to pay that debt to protect the world, just like his grandfather Zuko did. Iroh entered a small restaurant and went to the bathroom, only to get out dressing differently. He thought this would help him disguise himself from the public and his secret bodyguard. The next day Ozai woke up in a bedroom that he shared with another 2 kids. And in the bed next to him were another 3 kids. Ozai tried to stand up without making noise, but the boy next to him woke up. "Sorry, I did not want to wake you up," said Ozai in a low voice. The other kid yawned a little. "No problem. I wake up around this hour." "We better hurry up," said the kid walking to the door. Ozai looked at him, thinking about what he meant. Then someone shouted, "Breakfast is ready." Suddenly all the kids jumped from the bed and ran to the dinner table. Ozai was surprised, and then he also started to run to the dinner table. At breakfast, at one table, were all the kids. There were 8 kids, with 6 boys and only 2 girls. Tai Li stood behind the table. "Yesterday was a little hectic and I could not make the proper presentations." All the kids continued eating, but now watching Tai Li. "Everybody, he is Ozai. Is the son of 2 of my best friends," said Tai Li, and Ozai stood up abruptly and bowed respectfully to everyone. Some kids waved at him with their mouths full of food and others only looked at him. "And Ozai, this is our family. I am going to start from your right. Ahem, he is GNG, Bo, Wen, she is Fang, and her twin Fen, he is Chao, and his twin Cheng, then is Wei and I," said Tai Li. At the other table were the adults, and Tai Li walked to them. "And the young women here are Hua, Shu and Yan, and their respective husbands, Fu, Zmo and Haran. And the fine ladies over there who had the virtue of looking like me are Lat, Lao, and Wu." Ozai stood up again and bowed to them, and the adults nodded at him. Suddenly one of the younger kids asked, "Why does his name be the same as the bad Fire Lord?" Ozai turned to see him with a questioning look, but then his mother, Yan, said, "Bo, finish eating." The kid looked at his mother and she only shook her head and the kid continued eating. Tai Li gave a weak smile to Ozai, who was confused. After a while, Ozai walked outside to the backyard and Tai Li was with him. Tai Li asked him to train normally, so he started to warm up and then a couple of twins arrived. Chao and Cheng walked close to him and one of them said, "So, you practice any bending?" Ozai shook his head and the twins nodded. "Great, neither do we. The only 2 who can bend fire are Fang and Fen, but they don't train that much," said the twins complimenting each other. Then both asked, "Would you mind if we train with you?" Ozai shrugged and answered, "Sure." The twins made a mischievous smile, which Ozai did not see. Tai Li saw the whole interaction and only stood aside, watching everything. "Let's begin first. Who touches the ground with his shoulders loses and has to obey the winner for the day. Ready? Go." "Wait, is this a punish?" Ozai tried to ask something, but the 2 kids launched their attacks. For any ordinary kid and even some adults, they could have been too fast. Unfortunately, they are still slower than anyone who trains in combat. Ozai only needed to step back and with that, he avoided the attack altogether. Tai Li only snorted, but then she heard a smack and when she turned, she saw her niece and mother of the twins, who faced palm. The twins tried again. Now, one was sending a punch from one side and the other a low kick, but again Ozai moved back and avoided the attack, making the twins hit each other. Kylie shook her head with a smile, and then she heard some smacks, and then she saw the other nieces and their husbands facepalming. "Hey, look what you're doing, that's what you should be doing," shouted at each other the twins. Ozai was unsure what to do and said, "Ah, guys." But the twins turned at him and start attacking. The twins attack simultaneously, but now they coordinate correctly. Ozai finally put a fighting stance. The first attacker went for the face, but Ozai used his wrist to deflect the punch and made him go over his head, but the movement made him spin and he attacked with his other hand, but Ozai grabbed his wrist and then made a full circle with it, making him spin in the air, and then he fell back first. At that moment, Chao lost. Then the other twin jumped with a kick, but Ozai again used his wrist to move it and then he got closer while his opponent was still spinning and pushing him. But instead of falling, he jumped and then turned again to Ozai. At that moment, almost everybody was watching the match. Ozai was in a fighting stance, amazed that the kids were this good. They were stronger than most of his opponents back in 2's in. Ozai smiled a little, but his opponent thought he was taunting him. And Ty Lee believed it was a smirk, and then her memories of Azula returned to her, making her smile. Suddenly Cheng started to run, then jumped and started spinning in the air to finish with a downward kick aimed at Ozai's head. Ozai only stepped to the side and made a swapping kick, but Cheng backflipped to put some distance. Ozai finally attacked when he went close with a slight jump and jab punch at Cheng's head, but he evaded it and rolled to the back, then hooked the other arm of Ozai and made an arm drag, but Ozai made a flip in the air and landed with his feet. Cheng jumped to stand up, but Ozai used that moment to run and jumped with a double frontal kick that landed in Cheng's torso, making him fall with his back first, while Ozai used the push he made to him to backflip and land standing. Ty Lee could not do anything but realize the similarities between Ozai and Azula's fighting styles. Even when he is not a firebender, her style is noticeable. Cheng landed close to his twin Chao, who was already sitting on the ground. They were going to say something, but suddenly a big ball of fire appeared and went directly to Ozai. The girls were the last to arrive and only saw how Ozai kicked Cheng. Ozai jumped to the side and saw the twin girls with their fists pointing at him. "What are you doing to our brothers?" said Fang and Fen simultaneously. One of the twin girls, Fang, ran to him while Fen remained on the back. Fang produced a small fire that looked like knives and started to attack him. Ozai evaded the attack stepping back, but a fireball passed close to him. Unlike the boys, the twin girls were fighting as a team. Ozai looked at the other twin and then waited for the Fang's attack. She started to attack with her hands, using her fire knives. Ozai pushed her forearms to make her fail, but then she front kicked him with fire bending, which Ozai evaded when he kicked her feet to one side and kicked her in the stomach without putting a foot on the ground. She backflipped and landed next to her twin. Both girls started firebending from their position and Ozai was only evading everything. He jumped from side to side, then he began to run and jump to the wall in the house and again to the tree immediately. Unfortunately for the Tai family, the girls were attacking without thinking. When Ozai jumped into the tree, the girls also sent her fire attacks and the tree quickly started to burn. The girls were still with their guards up. They were looking at the sides as they thought Ozai may have jumped to another place. But suddenly, Ozai jumped from the fire. Instead of kicking or punching them, he just slipped between them, stretched his arms close to their feet and made a half circle, making them fall. The girls were surprised and would jump back again, but their parents stopped them. The rest of the family started to clap to Ozai, who finally realized that everybody was watching. Even Chao and Cheng were clapping. The girls stood up and one asked, "What is this? Why are you clapping at him?" "Yeah, he attacked Chao and Cheng. We were training," said the twin boys simultaneously. "Why did you not say so?" The girls questioned back, but their father said, "If he was attacking them, do you think we would be just standing there watching everything?" Pang and Fen looked around and they realized that the whole family was there and they only said, "Oh." They turned to Ozai and bowed, saying, "I am sorry to attack you suddenly." "There is no problem, it really helped me to train," said Ozai with a smile. The girls felt relieved as they thought they would not receive any punishment because he did not care too much about the attack. "Oh, that is good to hear," said Fang with a smile. "To compensate for this, you can come with us to the market." "If you want, of course," said Fen. "I would love to," said Ozai. The girls were about to say something, but their parents stopped them. "Not so fast, ladies. Before that, you need to help prepare all you burn," said her mother. Then they saw the burn marks on the house walls, the burn marks in the grass, and then suddenly they remembered that the tree was still burning. The whole family looked at the girls frowning, except for Chao and Chen, who were laughing at them. Ty Lee walked close to Ozai and took him inside the house. "That was a good fight. You have learned too much from your mother," said Ty Lee, and Ozai only smiled. After the training with the two pairs of twins, Ozai went to talk with Ty Lee's sisters. Unfortunately, they did not give him new information. It was a talk of the basics again. Ozai did not complain as he was paying attention to their words. He thought that they might give new information or their way of explaining things could provide more insight into the technique. His parents, especially his father, thought this technique could help him, although he won't learn it, he should understand it. The next day Ozai was again talking with Ty Lee. She told him one way to better understand the technique was by meditating. I see, said Ozai, a little down. He has tried that on multiple occasions, but has yet to get the results he wanted. I know. You probably already tried, as it's the logical path, said Ty Lee with a smile. But maybe that's where the problem is. You see, meditation varies from person to person. Your father and mother meditate in the most conventional way, but all of us are conventional, right? Said Ty Lee with a wink. Me, for example. I practice contortionism to meditate. It helped me to concentrate and feel where and how my energy flow through my body. You also need to find which is your way to meditate. Finished Ty Lee, and Ozai nodded. Ozai passed the time thinking in a way to meditate. Suddenly Fang and Fen appeared in front of him. Hey, what are you thinking of? Said Fang. Oh, nothing, said Ozai. If that's so, would you mind helping us? Fang asked. We were asked to go for some groceries. We could use some hands to carry the bags, said Fen. Sure, answered Ozai with a shrug. Iroh ran and jumped over the wall of the palace to escape. A move not seen by the guards, but he did not notice that inside the palace, behind a window, over a small tower, Princess Izumi was pinching the bridge of her nose and Fire Lord Zuko was smiling. Come on. He is young and needs to experience a little more of the everyday of the nation, said the Fire Lord. He lacks discipline, said Izumi. He is unable to leave without being noticed. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Come in, said Zuko, and a guard appeared. Fire Lord Zuko, Princess Izumi. It seems that Prince Iroh has left the palace alone. We have sent a group of guards to search for him. Thank you for informing me. Please search for him, but I think he will be back before dinner, so don't work up, said Zuko with a smile. The guard did not know what to say or do, but Izumi then said, you may leave now. The guard bows and leave them alone. See. Not even 5 minutes, and we were notified, said Izumi. Zuko only chuckled. The Fire Lord and Princess Izumi already knew that he had been talking with people in the street. Especially with a group of petty thieves. They sumptuously steal food and money to give to some low-income families. Iroh has always been discreet around this group of thieves, who he now calls friends. He usually takes some money and food from the kitchen before meeting with them. He had helped them with the thieving a couple of times. It has never come to fight, as they leave if a fight broke down. The prince really thinks that they need to do something about the local economy, but without real political power, he is able to do something. Iroh arrived at the meeting place, a small house that was half destroyed, and 3 other people were there. 2 of them were around his age, and 1 younger, around 14 years old. The younger is typically the one that helps scout and lets them know if there is anyone to rob in the streets. Oh, you finally arrived, said one of the men with a smile. Iroh noted that the teen was shaking a little. What happened with Erden? Asked Iroh while pointing at the teen. Well, he will try to steal for the first time. Obviously, we gave him an easy target, but still, one of the men answered back. Iroh laughed a little and then got close to him. Don't be nervous. If it helps, I can go with you. Really? The young teen said, now without shaking. Sure. I will only step up if something happens, answered back Iroh. Yeah. Make us proud, said the other man. Erden nodded and calmed down a little. Okay, I am gonna do it. The teen left the house, and Iroh was behind. Later Iroh put some distance and followed the teen from afar. His target was 2 girls that were accompanied by an older kid with fine clothes. Iroh got closer to see them, but with enough space to not be detected. He saw why they were their target. The way the older kid moved around showed that he was careless about money, and the clothes he wore showed that he wanted to show up his status. Then Iroh frowned when he saw a symbol in the clothes, the old symbol for the Fire Royal family. He must be from a family that supports Azula and Goku's claim for the throne. I still don't know why grandfather is adamant about recognizing them as threats. Iroh's mind trailed off, but he came back to his senses when he saw Erden making his move. The older kid was with one girl looking at some fake jewelry. The older one seems to try to tell her that they are fake, and the vendor tries his hardest to convince them otherwise. Fortunately, that helped to create a distraction while the other girl, the one that seemed to have the money, was buying some vegetables. Erden stood next to the girl and grabbed a vegetable with one hand, but with the other hand, he put his hand in the bag where the purse was. Unfortunately, the girl was going to save the cabbage when Erden was about to take his hand out with the purse. The teen did not waste time and started to run. Hey, a thief, screamed Fen, pointing at the teen that took her purse. At that moment, she did not think to use her firebending, not because of the number of people around, which would have ended up injured, but because she was shocked about the whole situation. Ozai turned to see her and saw the teen running. He wanted to run at full speed, but with many people in the way, he could not but still give chase to the thief. Fang and Fen also run behind Ozai. Iroh only smirked and ran using a shortcut so he could help Erden to hide. Ozai was getting desperate for the number of people, so he decided to jump, not caring about being impolite, and he used the shoulders or heads of the people to step on them and continue chasing. The young thief saw the alley where his partner would be, but suddenly he felt a palm in his chest that threw him back with so much force that he landed back first with the wall. At the moment of the impact, he lost his air. A shadow appeared in front of him, and the kid that was with the girl now looked bigger. Ozai stopped the thief and took the purse back. He heard the twins running and screaming at him. He walked to them, but before he could get close, an intense flame showed up in front of him. Iroh was pissed. He had seen the older thieves failing a couple of times, but they had never been mistreated that harshly. Worst of all, the one that received that punishment was Erden, the youngest of the group. He turned to look at him and saw him coughing some blood. This kid was powerful, and wearing that symbol meant that he was a future terrorist. "Stay back," screamed Ozai to the twins. Not only the twins but also the bystanders move out of the way. Ozai has experience with firebenders. Especially his mother. The firebending used against him was powerful, not as powerful as his mother's firebending, but better than everyone else. Iroh launched 2 fireballs with his punches, but his enemy disseminated them with 2 reverse spin kicks for each fireball. Iroh continued his attack and threw a stronger flame using both hands together. Ozai ran towards his opponent and jumped above him and tried to kick him. Iroh had followed the jump with his hand, making the flames grow high to the sky, but when he saw him landing close to him, he broke the bending and put some distance. "How slow," said Ozai, which only angrier his opponent. Iroh frowned but tried to calm himself when he saw that Erden was attempting to stand up. He tried to control his breathing. Then he launched another 2 punches and a swapping kick, sending a fireball for the punches and a line of fire with his sweep kick. Ozai jumped to the side and avoided the attack. But Iroh continued attacking with fireballs. Ozai continued avoiding them, and then a big flame appeared. Iroh had enough and decided to attack with his breath of fire. A technique taught by his grandfather. When the flames went down, Ozai was standing there, covering himself with a clay pot, but when he looked to his front, his enemy was no longer there. When he looked around, he saw the 2 thieves running through the alley. Ozai did not hesitate and throwed the pot, and it hit the younger thief. Ozai ran close, and then Iroh showed up again, protecting the young thief. Suddenly a voice sounded, "What is happening here?" 2 guards finally showed up on each side the other side of the alley. Ozai smirked as he thought that the guards would put these thieves under arrest. He was wrong. Ozai was trying to understand why the guards decided that he was the culprit. It did not make sense. He stopped the thieves, Fang and Fen backed him up, and the bystanders also said that he stopped the thieves that had been stealing the market, and still, he was the one in a cell. The twins told him that they were going to speak with their family. Meanwhile, he was waiting, sitting there in a cell that smelled like somebody had puked. The first to show up at the guard post where Ozai was held prisoner was Izumi. She went there as she was told that her son had been attacked. She proceeded to enter the captain's office and sat in his chair while the captain stood to her right. When she arrived, all the guards bowed to her, and even her own son did it. Erden was not there, as Iroh had told him to leave because he could deal with the guards. He had done that on other occasions. When the other thieves asked about it, he always said that he was good at sneaking out. But this was the first time that Iroh's mother had come for him personally. "Head-ups," said Izumi. Everybody stood straight. "Tell me what happened," said the princess sternly. The post's captain nodded and proceeded to answer, "We heard a commotion. When our guards arrived, they found Prince Iroh being chased. We also found out that Prince Iroh was defending an innocent bystander caught in the middle of the fight. Is that true?" asked Izumi looking at Iroh. "Yes, mother," answered the prince, not looking at her. "Who found him?" asked the princess, and 2 guards raised their hands. They were not the guards that worked in the mansion, and when she realized that, she frowned. "Iroh. I want you to tell me what exactly happened," demanded Izumi. Iroh stood straight and looked at her. "I left the mansion to see some friends quickly. On my way back, I was attacked. The aggressor did not care about the people around him and injured an innocent boy. I fight him for a moment until the guards show up. He was wearing the old symbol for the Fire Royal family. He is one of those terrorists." Izumi listened with attention to his son's words. He may have been with thieves, but she could not rule out the possibility that he was genuinely targeted by one of the extremists or radicals of the nation. It wouldn't be the first time. "Those are a bunch of lies," a loud girl's voice sounded. "Yay, the whole market saw what really happened," another similar loud voice said. Everybody turned to see the person who was screaming, and at the door of the office stood 2 identical twin girls, and behind was an older woman. All the guards frowned, and Iroh looked angrier. The only that looked calm was Izumi, who recognized the older woman. "Who let you get inside? Guards, take them." "Shut up," screamed the princess and stopped the captain. "Little girls, do you know what really happened?" asked the princess, and both nodded. "Yes. We were buying groceries when somebody tried to steal my purse," said Finn. "I went after him and took it back, but then he attacked him with his firebending," said Fang while pointing at Iroh. "When the guards showed up, the whole market told them who was the thieves, but they still took Ozai prisoner," said Fang. Izumi frowned and looked at the guards, who flinched when they felt her gaze. "Princess Izumi. Those brats are just making the story to help the kid. They should be working with them. We should arrest them and the old woman behind them," said the captain. "Are you trying to imply that a hero from the war, and known Kyoshi, and most importantly, my Aunt Ty Lee, is trying to kill my son?" asked Izumi calmly but dangerously. The eyes of Iroh and all the guards and the captain opened wide. Ty Lee only smiled at the scene, as Izumi looked just like Mai at that moment. "It has been a while, Izumi," said Ty Lee. Izumi stood up and went to hug her aunt. "If you had come back, you should have told me. I would have gone to visit you right away." "It's been kind of hectic," said Ty Lee with a smile. To Izumi, it did not matter how much had passed, her Aunt Ty Lee always looked young, and when she smiled, she was even younger. Izumi turned to the office again. Guards screamed, and even the twins flinched. "You are going to escort him," said Izumi while pointing at Iroh, "back home and wait for me. If I return and I don't see you there will be consequences," declared the princess. The guard saluted her, and Iroh just clenched his teeth but followed his mother's wishes. Izumi stopped two of the guards. "The two of you were the ones that were in the scene. You will go back and bring the real thief. Now." The two guards saluted her and ran away to search for the young thief. "Captain, go and bring the prisoner." "An apology should be given immediately," demanded the princess. The captain looked for the kids and ran. The princess sighed and then turned to Ty Lee. "I apologize for all of this," said Izumi while bowing down. "Everything has been solved, so there is no need for that," said Ty Lee. "Yeah. It should be the thief and his accomplice," said Finn. "Yay. And the guards too. If they hadn't shown up, Ozai would have beaten them," said Fang. Izumi smiled and nodded at them. She then turned to see Ty Lee. "Is he Azula's?" Ty Lee nodded and Izumi's eyes opened wide for a moment. Then the captain arrived with Ozai. "He is here, princess," said the captain. Izumi nodded and looked at the kid. He looked taller than she expected. He had spiky hair, just like the information about Goku, but he also had yellow eyes, as all the royal family has. "I heard that you were wrongly accused of a crime. We apologize for the problem," said Izumi with a little bow. The captain looked desperate. "Please, princess, it was our fault, not yours." The captain turned to the kids and bowed down deeply. "In the name of the guards of this post, let me apologize for everything. There is no problem. Please, don't bow down. It was nothing. It's already resolved, right?" said Ozai. He had never liked when people bowed down to him, and he really felt particular pressure when he heard that the woman in front was the princess and the crown princess by default, which meant that they were family. Ty Lee and the twins chuckled a little when they saw Ozai's reaction. In that regard, he was not like any of his parents. Azula wouldn't be satisfied with just an apology and would have to demand something in exchange, and Goku would not care at all. The older woman smiled and took Ozai's shoulder. "It's getting late, so it's better for us to leave. Aunt Lee, before that. For how long are you staying?" "I wish to visit you," asked Izumi with a smile. "I may be leaving in a couple of days. I just arrived here for a different view. This kid right here needs to learn something that their parents asked me to teach him," said Ty Lee. "I see," said the princess, a little sad. Ty Lee smiled at her and continued. "Once it is finished, I will be coming back, so May in a month." The crown princess smiled and nodded. "I will be waiting for your message to can visit you." Ty Lee smiled and left with the kids. Izumi could hear one of the twins saying, "I didn't know that she was the chief of the police. I will make sure to ask her to do something about the guards next time she visits our home." The crown princess chuckled and turned back to the captain. "I hope to have an update about the thieves in the next 24 hours. Am I clear?" "Yes, your highness," said the captain shaking. "Good. Now bring me some paper," demanded the princess while sitting again on the desk. The captain took the paper from a box and Izumi grabbed the pen and ink that were already on the desk. She started to write something, which only took her a few minutes to complete. Once she was satisfied, she signed it, rolled it and took it with her. Once the crown princess left the guard post, 2 guards came to her side. She kept walking where a palanquin was waiting. Before going in, she called for one of the guards, "Send this to General Gamble." The guard bowed and took the paper and started to run to the nearest talk message post. Izumi entered the palanquin and let a big sigh escape from her. She was disappointed in her son. It took her a few minutes to arrive. When she did it, she walked to the main hall where Iroh was sitting on a chair and the guards that went with him were standing next to a painting. When she entered the hall, the 2 guards bowed down again. "You can leave and help search the thieves," said Izumi, and the guards bowed down again and left the palace. Iroh stood from the chair and was going to walk up the stairs, but he was stopped by his mother. "Iroh, to my study," now screamed Izumi, and her son only let a desperate moan, but walked down and went to the study room. Once inside, Iroh left himself fell on a sofa. Izumi walked and sat across from him. A butler entered with 3 cups of jasmine tea. Princess Izumi was offered one, which she took, and the same tea was provided to Iroh. The door opened, and Fire Lord Zuko entered, and the butler gave him the last cup of jasmine. When he took the cup, he looked at his daughter and recognized the face on her, then he turned to the butler, "Thank you. You may leave, but leave the pot with the tea here, please." The butler obeyed and left the room. Zuko sipped his tea and spoke first, "I hope you don't mind that I am here and that I requested the tea. I heard you screaming and believed that you needed it." Izumi sighed and sipped her tea. She calmed down a little, and that calm let her know that her decision was correct. "Iroh, I need you to tell me what is wrong," asked Izumi calmly. Zuko heard her and remembered his wife Mai, and a shiver ran through his spine. Iroh could not feel the situation he was in and only answered, "I am sorry about all of this. It won't happen again." "Iroh, you are 28 years old. But you act like a teenager," Izumi said with the same tone as before. "Well, it's not bad for him to keep his young spirit," Zuko said, but Izumi only looked at him, and even his father flinched. "I said I was sorry." "Reply again, Iroh." The crown princess sighed and spoke calmly, "This is my fault for being too lenient with you. Your lack of discipline is worrying some." The princess sipped her tea and continued, "For that reason, you will be going to report to General Gamble tomorrow." "What?" screamed Iroh. "You inscribed me to the military." Zuko tried to calm down his grandson, and once he sat again, Izumi continued, "I will be having regular reports of your behavior." Iroh was speechless by what her mother had just told him. Zuko tried to intervene, "Come on, Izumi. Don't you think you are being too harsh on him?" "Harsh?" asked Izumi with a raised eyebrow. "Just a couple of hours, he was thieving. Stealing in the market. Then when he was captured, he blamed an innocent kid for terrorism and for an attempt of murder." She paused and looked at both men, "A kid. He knows what would happen to that kid if he accused him of attempting to murder the royal family." Izumi frowned and looked directly at his son, "This is not punishment. It's a correctional education. If it were a punishment, I would have taken you under arrest for treason against your own people. You have been stealing from our citizens. A fire prince thieving," Izumi said, shaking her head. "I was doing it too, Kan. It does not matter why you were doing it, what matter is that you were doing it," Izumi cut Iroh. "Izumi, I think we should let him explain himself," said Zuko. The crown princess looked at the Fire Lord, "Father, you and mother teach me the importance of certain values. I will always be thankful for that." Zuko smiled as he thought that his daughter had calmed down. "Unfortunately for him," Izumi continued, "but I am still the one responsible for his education as a mother. You can't make me go to the army." "I am an adult," said Iroh, angered as he felt like a little child. "Correct. Although your actions don't reflect them, biologically, you are one. But you also need to know that if you fail me in this, I will remove you from the succession line," said Izumi, ending her tea. "You can't do that, only the Fire Lord can do it," said Iroh while turning to his grandfather. Zuko sighed, "Although you are correct. Right now, most of my duties are being taken care of by your mother because I have already made up my mind to pass the crown to her in the next years. But if you do that, who's going to be the next in line?" asked Iroh, angry. Izumi was disappointed. The lack of discipline made him deviate from the main point instead of trying to do what was needed to be for that not to happen. "You met him already," said Izumi. "The next one in line would be the kid you tried to incriminate today." Iroh got furious. He took his cup and put it on the table without breaking it and stormed out of the room. Zuko saw his grandson leaving. He wanted to go and calm him, but his curiosity won over him. He turned to his daughter and asked, "This kid you are talking about, who is?" "Azula's descendant. The report from the police said he was 11. Probably her grandson," answered Izumi to his father. She knew that he had a being searching for Azula and Goku. Zuko smiled and a tear of joy ran down his cheek. The butler entered and took the 3 empty cups. When Ozai came back with Ty Lee and the twins, the whole family received him. They hugged him and thanked him for protecting Fang and Fen. Especially the twins Chao and Cheng, who called him his honorary twin. At night the Tai family made a feast. At that moment, they realized that Ozai might not be a normal kid. The way he was eating and the amount of food he ate was so much that they could not believe that it was an 11-year-old kid. Once the dinner was over, Ty Lee took Ozai to the backyard to speak with him. "I have been speaking with my sisters about your training. We ended up thinking that it would be better if you learn about the flow of the energy in a more what is the word spherical? No, lyrical, no, it's got a cal sound at the end." I thought for a moment and offered, "Theoretical." "Yes, theoretical," said Ty Lee while smiling. "And two can do it, we will need to travel to the North Pole." The kid frowned at the randomness of it. "Why?" "Because the North Pole has the best healing teachers. Even when the best healer may be in the South Pole, said the old woman. And when are we going to leave? Tomorrow. There is a ship that will be leaving in the afternoon. If we don't take it, we will need to wait for a week or more for the next ship. Ozai nodded but looked at the floor. Don't tell me you already love my family? Asked Tylee teasingly. Ozai only smiled at her. The old woman drew a mischievous smile and said, you know. You can always marry Fang or Fen and stay and live with us. Ozai turned red and Tylee laughed. The laugh echoed a little in the backyard with a burned tree that still stood tall. Northern Water Tribe. After saying their goodbyes to the Tai family, Tylee and Ozai left the house. They arrived at the port, but a soldier approached them before getting closer to the ticket area to buy their pass to the North Pole. Excuse me, are you Ms. Tylee? Asked a soldier to the old woman. She only nodded with a smile and said, yes, that's who I am. But who you might be. I was ordered to escort you to our ship, answered the guard. Ozai frowned, but Tylee smiled. Well, it will be unpolite even to see who is offering the helping hand, said Tylee. The guard bowed and helped with Ozai and Tylee's small package. The guard guided them to a small but luxurious ship from the Fire Nation. Once they were close, another guard came close to the one who showed them the way. They said something, and then one of them ran inside the ship. Once in the proa, a man appeared with a big frame. He looked old, but with a smile he kept almost all the time. It was curious to Ozai, as the soldiers around looked intimidated by him. Welcome to my ship Ms. Tylee and company, said the man. I am Captain Arbin. I received a direct order from General Gamble that I should escort you to your next destination, as instructed by our Princess Izumi. Oh. I don't recall telling her I would leave today, wondered Tylee aloud. The captain nodded without erasing his smile. Well, we have been tasked to rotate here until you arrive. Tylee was satisfied with the answer. Ozai did not say anything. The man again spoke, could I inquire about the destination? Of course, you can, said Tylee, and then she kept silent. Ozai and the captain kept looking at Tylee, who only smiled. Ahem, the captain cleared his throat. Ms. Tylee. Could you tell us where we are heading? To the North Pole, said Tylee. Very well, luckily, we just replenished our supplies, said the captain, then laughed a little. Then he turned to the guard who had Ozai and Tylee's things. Private, please escort Ms. Tylee and her companion to our best rooms. The old man turned to Tylee and said, I will need to excuse myself. I will be going to our control room to start our journey. Again, welcome to our ship. The man left, and his smile never left his face. Unalak is the current chief of the Water Tribes. He sat in the dining hall, eating food with his 9-year-old kids, Eska and Desna. The two kids were identical twins, with the difference that Eska is a girl and Desna is a boy. Only those close to them may tell the difference because the twins wore the same clothing. The twins were known to be prankers, but they always portrayed stoic faces to cover their deeds to their father. But they usually behaved their best when around their father. While eating, a guard approached Unalak. Sir. A message came. The guard took a rolled paper from his coat and presented it to the Water Tribe chief. Unalak took the paper and unfolded it. He read it, nodded, and returned it to the guard. Thank you for your work. Please call for our general and our master healer. Tell them I expect them in 2 hours. The guard bowed and left the place running. The kids could not help but notice that their father asked for a general. A thing that had never occurred, and their first idea was that the Water Tribe would be at war again. Eska and Desna looked at each other, and without saying a word, they realized they were thinking the same thing and smiled. Father. Are we going to war? Said Eska with a smile. Unalak was already eating again with calm. Without taking his eyes off the food, he said, it is nothing to worry about. It's just that we are going to have some visits. The chief turned to see his kids and smiled. Desna and Eska made a pout face. In fact, you will be having a playing partner, completed Unalak. The person who needs the presence of the master healer, our general, and father himself. Thought the twins, and the answer was singled out to one person. Hooray. An imperative avatar on our house, said Desna in a monotonous voice. Not quite. Is it discipline from Tylee herself, said their father. Great, an imperative old woman, murmured Eska. After almost 2 weeks, Tylee and Ozai finally arrived at the North Water Tribe. Ozai woke up thanks to the freezing air. At that moment, he wished he was a firebender to keep himself warm. He took a long-sleeved red shirt from his bag, which was as heavy as his current clothing, and then he took an armor that resembled the one his mother wears, but his was broader shouldered with a small cape that would help him to stay warm. Imagine Gohan wearing Piccolo's suit, but with the colors of the Fire Nation. Red instead of purple, gold instead of blue, and the cape cloak should be black instead of white. The armor took up almost all the backpack space, so now it seems empty, only containing some other needed clothing. Tylee entered Ozai's room after knocking. Oh, good, you are already awake and clothed properly. Ozai nodded. Come on. We are arriving, said the old woman and walked out of the room. Ozai walked behind Ty Lee, and when she finally opened the door to the proor, he felt the cold breeze. He took the cape and covered his front and then walked out. He saw a great white wall with the emblem of the water tribe in the middle. The man with blue robes got closer. "Please, follow me." Ty Lee and Ozai followed the man, but the teen boy could not stop looking at the wall. The man in blue robes guided them to a small boat where another two men were, both looked strong. The man that guided them to the boat then made a signal and the ship was put down to the water and then he started to move his arms and the boat started to move forward the wall. The man created a hole before them and the boat moved slowly through it. After passing what could be the thickest wall Ozai had ever seen, they entered a small compartment with ice walls on all sides except on the top. Then the walls started to open and water filled the place, making them go up. After a minute, Ozai saw the city. Everything was white and looked like it was made with water bending. The boat started to move and they traveled through the city. People were walking on the side like nothing and on the water lane were some boats pulled by waterbenders passing. When the boat finally arrived at the palace, they entered through a tunnel and in that tunnel was a group of soldiers wearing blue coats and spears. They moved to the side as Unalak walked where Ty Lee was. "Welcome to the Nort Water Tribe. It is a pleasure to have you, Master Ty Lee, the heroine of the war and brave Kyoshi warrior," said the Water Tribe leader solemnly. "Thank you Chief Unalak. Although, I am no longer a Kyoshi warrior. Time to pass to another part of my life," said Ty Lee with a smile. "I see. I hope that this new phase of your life gives you what you are searching for," the Water Tribe chief said and then saw the kid on her side. "And you would be Ozai, am I right?" "Oh, yes. It is a pleasure to meet you, Chief Unalak." "I am honored to be able to meet you," said Ozai while bowing respectfully, making the Fire Nation greeting sign. Unalak smiled and made a slight bow. "If you are a personal trainee of Master Ty Lee, I can only wait for great things from you." The Water Tribe chief turned to see the two and continue. "But let's talk in another place, instead of just standing here. Please accompany my family and me for lunch." "Oh, that would be delightful. I wonder how much Eska and Desna have grown," said the old woman with a smile. Ozai walked behind Ty Lee with his bag on his shoulders. Surprisingly, inside the castle was not that cold. "You can leave your belongings to our servants. They will take them to your rooms," said Unalak. The young woman got closer to Ozai, but he hesitated to give her his bag. "What is the matter?" asked Ty Lee. "It's nothing. Just that I don't think that she will be able to," trailed off Ozai while looking at his bag. Inside were his training clothes, including heavy clothing. "Oh," was the only thing Ty Lee said. Unalak did not understand his hesitation completely, but only complied with the situation. "Well, you can bring it with you. If you are worried about your belongings. Although, I can attest that they are of my full trust. It's not that at all. It is just that Ozai tried to think about a way to tell them. It's not that, it's just that it is too heavy for them to carry." "No, that doesn't sound good, maybe. You may want to bring another 2 or 3 to help you." "No, that sounds even worse," thought Ozai. But his train of thought was stopped when 2 kids appeared. "Father," said the kids, and Ozai turned to see them. "Eska, as in a long time no seeing you," said Ty Lee. The twins sighed and looked away as they knew the old lady was only playing with them. "Ozai, let me introduce you to my son and daughter, Desna and Eska. Prince and Princess of the Water Tribes," said Unalak. Ozai bowed respectfully with his Fire Nation sign. The twins only nodded at him. After that, they proceeded to the dinner table to have lunch. While eating, Unalak brought up the theme of Ozai's reason for traveling. "I just remembered that our master healer is eager to meet you. It is not always that someone from the outside wants to learn." Eska smirked, "Learning healing bending. It seems that I misinterpreted you. You learning healing bending means that you are a waterbender girl," Eska said her father. "Oh, come on. If that was the case, wouldn't that mean that both of you are boys?" said Ty Lee with a smile. The twins frowned and looked at Ty Lee. Desna calmed her face with her typical stoic demeanor. He looked around and when everybody started to eat again, he said, "Yes, my sister is proficient with her water bending attacks," said Desna and then smirked. "Maybe he could become my sister's future husband. That way, both fronts of waterbending will be covered." The whole table got silent. Even the helpers standing close stood there silently with their eyes wide open. "What did you say?" yelled Eska. Unalak only faced palmed. Ty Lee, on her side, elbowed Ozai. "You are a real heartbreaking kid. Not an hour here and already with a girlfriend." Suddenly the table was broken as Eska started to waterbend against her brother. Ozai is sitting in the corner of an igloo. At the center was the master healer and some young girls, and between them, a doll with the size of a grown man, with some line carved in it. Ozai was taking notes of the words of the master healer, as he did not want to disturb the class. He was told that the course was for those talented waterbenders. The young boy heard everything very attentively. Unfortunately, the students were very good at the themes that did not ask questions, although some did not ask for fear of looking dumb. I was the one that, at the end of the class, asked the master healer a few questions, such as, what happens if the person has a missing limb? Are the energy canals physical like veins? The master healer smiled and answered every question, and in their third class, she gifted Ozai a couple of scrolls regarding the healing technique, a gift Ozai loved. The scrolls were given at the perfect timing, as the same day, he was told that his stay in the North Water tribe would be short. After one of the classes, Ozai walked back to the palace while reading one of the scrolls. He suddenly stopped when he crashed headfirst with a person. When he turned to see with who he had hit, he saw Unalak. "Are you alright, Prince Ozai?" "Yes, I am. Wait, Prince." "Well, yes. I am aware of the circumstances of your family. You are a descendant of Princess Azula and one of the possible successors of the Fire Nation crown," answered Unalak with a smile. Behind a corner were the twins hearing everything. They wanted to prank their guest but stopped when they saw their father, but now they wanted to hear everything about this prince. Desna then turned to his sister. "It seems that he is a royal after all. He may be able to marry you." Eska frowned. I looked around with a worried expression. Unalak chuckled a little. "Don't worry. We are alone. But I am not a prince. My parents left the Fire Nation and I don't want the crown," said Ozai really fast. "Your parents left, not you. Either way, you are too young to choose if you want or not the crown," said Unalak while walking into the palace direction. Ozai followed behind the chief. "That decision should be taken when you have more experience and maturity, but regardless of your decision, that fact that you are a prince is a fact you had since birth," complimented Unalak. "But this is not why I came to search for you." Ozai looked at the water tribe chief. Unalak only smiled and continued walking. "I wanted to ask about your interest in learning about the water-bending healing techniques. After all, you are a non-bender." The twins looked at each other and fought themselves not to laugh. Then they left the place in silence. Ozai scratched the back of his head. "Well, I am trying to learn about energy, really. Ms. Ty Lee told me that she could not teach me her chai blocking technique. But she told me that healing also resolved around energy." Unalak smiled and nodded, "A very well thought. I guess this has to be related to your parents' training, am I correct?" The young boy smiled and nodded. "Yes, my mom has told me that even if I am not a firebender, I should train hard. The commendable way of parenting. And if I may, I would like to see your progress before you leave." "You can think of it as a test of a sort," said Unalak. "Nothing to worry about, just to confirm your knowledge is correct and rectify anything, so you can have the best information available," explained Unalak. Ozai's eyes went wide open with brightness in his eyes. "Wow. Thank you very much. In fact, I have been thinking that waterbenders could maybe use their healing process in other ways, like helping people with stress, like some kind of purification. Because the water helps you to redirect the channel of the energy, and that way, the healing goes faster as it is not the water that heals but yourself. With that in mind, you could redirect the direction of the energy causing problems." Suddenly Ozai realized that he had been rambling by himself. The water tribe chief only looked at him with a smile. "You are correct in certain ideas. You see, energy is in everything, people, animals, spirits. But let's leave that for another occasion." Ozai smiled and nodded. At night, Ozai was studying the scrolls and doing little experiments. He searched and found the exact point where Ty Lee blocked his arm. It was essentially a crossed road for the energy. He started to detect the other crosses and tried to follow and think of the flow within his body. He was distracted a few times by noises that he believed were the twins, but he could never catch them. In the morning, Ozai was meditating and was interrupted by a knock on the door. Ty Lee appeared from it. "Oh, training already. How dedicated." Ozai broke his concentration and stood up. "I still don't get it. I can feel my energy better now. I have always felt it, but with the scrolls is even easier. Still, something is missing." Ty Lee took a seat on a chair in front of Ozai. "But I am still unable to feel the energy around me. My father told me that is needed to detect your opponent." Ty Lee smiled. "He is not wrong. In order to know your opponent, you need to know yourself. But I guess it's a little more literal in this situation," said the old woman, then giggled a little. "You know, I have always had the ability to see the color of other people's auras. And I guess that is similar to what your father wants to teach you," said the older woman while patting Ozai's shoulder. "What I know about is that every time that Goku tried that technique, he let his energy expand. Mind you, he always has this enormous orange aura. But it's like he can control the energy," said Tali. "I look to the ground, but I don't know how to expand my energy. Do I have one, to begin with?" Ali giggled again. "Don't be silly. All living things have energy and auras. Yours is a wonderful purple aura, by the way." I nodded and said, "So what you are saying is that he controls his energy to detect other people's energy." The old woman smiled. "It's a possibility. He asked me to teach you about energy. And his wording was, we want him to learn how to feel the energy, so I suppose he referred to feeling other people's energy." The young teen started to think about the words, either way. Let's go to the dinner table. Breakfast is ready. I forgot to tell you that when I entered. Ozai was again trying to read the scrolls but heard some sounds. He sighed and then tough of trying the technique his parents wanted to teach him to detect the twins, an excellent exercise to see if his control of energy has improved at least a little. Unfortunately, he was unable to do it. Suddenly the sound of something big falling was heard. Ozai ran to the window and saw a giant monster and the twins were fighting against it. And the worst was that they were losing. Eska and Desna wanted to prank his visitor, Ozai. They were trying to sneak into his bedroom and waterbend some water in his pants and then turn the water to ice. But out of nowhere, an explosion happened and a monster later appeared in the same alley they were in. The monster was gigantic in their eyes. All black with burning yellow eyes. It was standing on 2 legs, but its form was closer to a tiger shark, especially with the mouth with all Fang's teeth. Eska and Desna were attacking with their water bending. Whipping the monster and sending some ice spikes, but nothing seemed to work. By mere luck, they have avoided many of its attacks. Suddenly what appeared to be the arm of the monster grew large and wiped in the direction of Eska. She saw how the extremity was falling in her direction and for a moment she thought it was all over, that she would die at just 9 years old. She closed her eyes and waited for the pain to come from the top, but instead, she felt a push from her left. She felt like falling on top of something warm and when she opened her eyes, she saw Ozai's face in front of her. Eska did not know what happened or what to do, but suddenly he pushed her again and both rolled to one side just in time to avoid an attack. Ozai stood up and started to yell at the monster. He was sure he was at least faster than the twins and had more possibilities to avoid the attacks. The monster turned to Ozai and attacked him and the boy moved away and decided to kick him, only for him to pass through the monster. The feeling that Ozai felt while passing through the monster could only be described as passing through thin water. Once Ozai stood up again, he decided to lure the monster outside the capital. Unfortunately, he had no idea or plan of what to do after that. Fortunately, 4 guards finally appeared and they created an ice prison for the monster. The young boy smiled and let himself fall to the floor, but the monster broke the top of the prison, now looking furious. Its movements were faster than before and Ozai had problems avoiding the attacks. The monster saw the 4 guards and with a clean move of its arm, the monster threw them away. That left Ozai alone, who was already tired. The monster attacked him with a whipping movement of his arm and the boy barely moved away from a direct hit, but the arm then moved and trapped Ozai and threw him against a wall. Eska and Desna saw everything. They felt terrible for Ozai and powerless for not being able to fight. Kylie appeared and in her eyes, the twins could see the dimension of the problem. Still, the older woman turned to them and gave them a reassuring smile. Ozai was coughing badly for the different impacts he had received. The monster grabbed him again and started hitting him against the floor repeatedly. Desna saw how Eska clenched her fist while looking at the scene. He knew what his twin was feeling. Both twins felt powerless, unable to do something. He saw Ty Lee, a non-bender older woman, unable to do anything but see the horrific scene. The twins heard the scream of pain from Ozai and decided to leave Ty Lee and run and do something for him, but they were stopped by the older woman. They wanted to yell at her, but then they saw their father. Unalak finally arrived. He was disposing of the other monster that appeared. He ran and created a disc of water that he launched at the arm of the monster that had trapped Ozai. Ty Lee suddenly appeared close and caught the falling body of Ozai. Once Ozai was secured, Unalak started to create a spiral of water around the monster. The monster looked around itself, confused. Then the water began to glow with a bright light, calming the monster down while standing there as if waiting for something. The light of the water danced around the monster and suddenly the monster's black body started to change to a light yellow. It began to change slowly from the bottom until it covered its body. Once the monster had changed its color, Unalak removed the water around it. The monster then started to walk away and it began to vanish into the air. Ozai saw everything and smiled. His body was covered in bruises, with blood coming from his forehead. The twins stood up and were going to walk to their father, but Eska looked back with her best effort of indifference. She heard Ty Lee asking Ozai, "Are you okay, Ozai?" The young citizen of Tuzin answered, "Yeah, just some bruises." Esna only smirked and walked with her twin. Ty Lee raised one eyebrow, "Some bruises?" and then laughed. "You know, you don't look, but you are quite heavy," said the old woman. Ozai opened his eyes wide and facepumped, "Of course. I forgot to remove the weight." Ty Lee giggled, "Yeah. That would have helped you evade being coughed by the monster. You really need more experience, just like your parents said." Ozai laughed nervously while scratching the back of his head. He thought he might be in problems if his mother had seen him. He just prayed that Ty Lee wouldn't tell her about it. The next day, Ozai was being treated for his injuries. The master healer herself took it upon herself to help Ozai, and to her surprise, he could move like nothing almost instantly. Ozai looked at himself and was happy with the effectiveness. Wow, I never thought that the healing could accelerate this fast, said Ozai while checking his body without any bruises or scratches. The master healer wanted to say something, but Chief Unalak appeared. Hello Ozai. I see that you have healed completely, said Unalak, then turned to the woman, no wonder you are our master healer. He bowed a little, and the master healer bowed too. I know this may be a little imposing, but I would like to speak with our guest, said the man, and the master healer bowed again and left the room. First, I want to apologize. You are my guest, and still, you were injured. But also and most importantly, I want to thank you for helping the North Water Tribe, especially my daughter and son, said Unalak while bowing. No, I should be the one thanking you. If it weren't for you, I would have died there, said Ozai and bowed to him. The chief smiled at him, that was my duty as a chief. Conversely, you helped for no reason other than helping the people in need. You were already a special guest, but I want to also extend to you a citizen for our nation. It may come as symbolic, as the nations are in peace, but if anything happens to you or your family, the water tribes will always help you. Said Unalak. Ozai stood straight and bowed using the Fire Nation sign, thank you. That would be an honor. The water tribe chief nodded, very well. Tomorrow, before you go, we will give you the proper documents. I guess I need to go so it can be done in time. Unalak started to walk away but stopped and said, I am also very interested in you. Your insights about the healing technique at your age are something very uncommon. It took me years to think about the same thing. Seeing that someone so young could get that conclusion makes me think about the possible future. After that, the water tribe chief left the room. The next day, Ozai stood close to the harbor with a box in his hands. Next to him were his kids, and in front were Ozai and Ty Lee. The water tribe chief got close to the son of Azula, Ozai, in the name of the water tribes. I, Unalak, chief of North and South water tribes, want to offer you citizenship. We hope you grow and help our tribe, and in change, our tribe will help you and your family. Ozai bowed using the old Fire Nation sign, while Unalak used the one for the water tribe, which was with his hands together with fingers intertwined. Ozai listened to TCH, and he looked in the direction of Eska, who showed him the hands greeting. Ozai changed the signal quickly, and Unalak only smiled at it. Then Ozai took the box and opened it. In it were several papers, but in the front was a card with a photo of him wearing the black cloak armor. Without changing his stoic expression, Desna said, it seems that now there won't be any problem with you marrying him. The twin boy was waiting for his sister's reaction, for her to get angry, yell, and try to attack him, but he did not expect her to just smirk. Inside the ship, Ozai looked at how the North Water Tribe was getting smaller. He was still thinking about the monster. How impotent he was. He was sure that his mother and even his father would have defeated the monster easily, but his ineptitude cost him a very humiliating loss. Already missing her? Asked Ty Lee teasingly. Sorry. Answered Ozai, who woke up from his thoughts. Nothing. So, what's on your mind? I now understand my parents' insistence on learning about energy. Is there a way to solve it? Asked Ty Lee with a smile. Excuse me? Is there a way to solve that problem? Asked Ty Lee again. Well, yes, learning about energy. It's the reason for this travel. But it is not that easy. I can't even. Ty Lee stopped Ozai from keep talking. If there is a way to solve it, don't worry. There is no reason to worry, just do your best to solve it. And if there is no way to solve it, why even worry about it? Ozai was unable to answer. It was so simple, and yet so direct and accurate. He knew that he could do it. He knew that it would be difficult, the reason why just a few knew how. The young teen smiled and nodded. Good. Now, I can check how much you have progressed with all of that theory, said the old woman. Very well. But can I ask something before? Are we going back home? Asked Ozai. Not yet. We are going to Republic City, and then we finally be going back to Tuzin. Don't worry, I already mailed your parents about your progress. Ozai nodded with a smile, and then he remembered the day before about being coughed by the monster for not removing the heavyweight. Did mother say something about? Ty Lee only smirked, and that made Ozai shiver. The old woman laughed a little and said, that happened yesterday. It will take time for her to answer about it. Ozai's body relaxed, but Ty Lee said, but we will also train about it. I would be a bad friend to Azula and Goku if I didn't. I know I can think of something. Ozai resigned and only nodded to Ty Lee, who laughed at his reaction. The young teen only wanted to go to his room and take the test Unalak gave him. Republic City. Ozai was training in the prow of the ship. He started with meditation for about an hour before he started to shadow fighting. Some punches in the air, backflips to evade attacks, some kicks to the sides to push away the incoming enemies, running to one side to defeat one opponent. This mindset of fighting was taught by Azula, who told him about the firebending katas. For Ozai, it was a normal routine, for the spectators, it was a mind-blowing image. To Ty Lee, it was good progress. She could notice that he was faster and the energy he was using. She was unsure if he could accomplish something similar, but she was sure the energy was well controlled. It was not very noticeable by look, but the ship's crew could also feel the energy usage. Every time they punched the air in their direction, a small breeze happened in that direction. Ty Lee approached Ozai with a smile. That was very good. Small question, have you noticed something different? Ozai looked at her and crossed his arms. Something different? He said aloud. Ozai looked around, but then the old woman said, I am talking about you, not the ship or the crew. Oh, sorry, answered the boy. Ah, well, I think I'm getting used to the humility. Oh, well, never thought of it. But I am not referring to that. Either way, I want you to start your shadow fighting again, but now, you should think about the energy flow every time you make a punch or a kick. Try to project the energy outside your body, said Ty Lee with a smile and her hands on her back. Well, Ozai hesitated to answer, but when he saw Ty Lee, he sighed and answered, that's what I have been doing since I trained with my parents, but Ozai was stopped by Ty Lee, who put her hand in front of him, but you did not know the flow of the energy at that moment. I want you to remember everything you have been learning so far. Think about the energy coming from here, said Ty Lee, while pointing at Ozai's stomach, to your fist. Ty Lee stopped and started to put her finger in her chin. You know what? I have an idea. I want you to punch me as strong as you can, said Ty Lee with a smile. What? No, I would never try to hurt you, I don't. The boy was stopped by Ty Lee again. Don't worry, I will be standing there, said the old woman pointing at the far end. Ozai looked at the place and then at Ty Lee, who was still smiling, again at the place and again at the old woman. I don't think that I understand. Don't worry. Just stand here and try to feel your energy through your body and then to your fist. Let your fist guide your energy, instructed the old woman. Ozai nodded and she started to walk to her position. The young teen closed his eyes and put a fighting stance. He breathes deeply and then concentrates on the energy. He remembered the drawing from the healing techniques of the water tribes and concentrated on trying to use the lanes of energy can make it go through his fist. For Ozai, everything was happening slowly, the rest of the ship was different. They saw how the right fist of the young kid was glowing. Then Ozai opened his eyes and threw his punch in Ty Lee's direction. The old woman covered herself with both arms as she was sent back with a strong energy that looked like a force of the air. He started to run in her direction and helped her to stand up. He repeatedly started to apologize to her, but she was only smiling. Don't worry and congratulations, said Ty Lee once standing up. You need more training can control it. Ozai only nodded, still worried about Ty Lee's health. The old woman patted his head. Also, you will need to learn to feel your opponent's energy and the energy of all living things. How to use it to create attacks just like your father, and maybe, you can learn how to fly. The old woman smiled and looked at Ozai, who was with an unreadable face. It was too much to take for him at that moment. A few days passed, and the ship was approaching Republic City. The first thing that Ozai saw was the giant statue of Avatar Ong. A grey statue that rivalries the one in the Fire Nation. Close to the port, he could see many structures. Some were under construction, and others were already standing tall. It looked similar and different from Tuzin. The tall buildings made him remember his home city, but the designs were completely different. They looked like simple tall rectangular cubes, unlike Tuzin, where the buildings mixed the old architecture with the new, with some of the buildings trying to create a new style. Mainly oval shapes. Imagine West City or Papaya Island from DBZ. But there was something that Tuzin did not have, the Sato mobiles. Ozai saw them for the first time once they left the ship, as two men were waiting for Ty Lee and him, and they were guided inside one of them. It looked way too foreign for Ozai. But a thought arrived in his head. Why did the Fire Nation not have them? It was known to everyone that the Fire Nation, when ruled by his parents' brother Zuko, helped to create the Republic City alongside Avatar Ong. If this is true, why there wasn't any back there? Thought Ozai. When the vehicle stopped, they entered a hotel, one of the tallest buildings. Their room was a small department with 2 rooms inside and a bed in each. Left or right? Asked Ty Lee suddenly. I don't know right. Answered Ozai, not understanding the question. The old woman smiled, nodded, and walked inside the left room. Before entering, she said, I will have a shower, and after that, I will go to the council building. Ozai nodded, may I go to the council with you? Ty Lee stopped and looked at the teen, you may, but I will be in a reunion for I don't know how long. You may get bored. The Tuzin citizen looked around the place and then shrugged, I will be doing the same here. At least I could learn a little more about the city on the trip there. Ty Lee smiled, very well. I suggest you also take a shower. After a few hours and a shower that let them rest a little, they were again inside a Sato mobile. This time, Ozai saw the way the people were wearing. Pants that looked formal but also available to let run. Although he also saw people wearing similar clothes but with material that looked rather poor. Unlike Tuzin or any other place he had visited so far, most of the citizens of this place were wearing more comfortable clothes. When the car stopped at an intersection, the young teen saw the police of the city. Metal benders wearing green armor, but there was something bad in it. To Ozai, the armor seemed to look like the one used while training on Tuzin, but it also looked lighter. The car continued its movement until they arrived at their destination. The council hall was a building that inspired respect. A white building is standing proudly in the middle of the city. A person appeared outside the car and opened the door for them. Ty Lee and Ozai left the car and entered the building. Inside they were escorted to a room by a young woman, but before entering, Ty Lee turned to see the young boy. "I'm afraid you can't enter. Why don't you wait for me in the waiting room and try to train your perception of others' energy?" Ozai nodded and Ty Lee only smiled at the woman who escorted them. The woman smiled, although the woman was thinking that she was not a babysitter. Once, the old woman entered the room while the young woman guided Ozai into the waiting room. Once inside the room, the woman gave a small ball to him with the hopes that he would entertain himself with it and returned to her seat in the main hall, leaving Ozai alone. The young boy shrugged and took a seat in one of the chairs close to the wall. He was in a lotus position, with his eyes closed. He first searched for his inner energy and later he tried to feel his energy running through his body. He followed the energy but did not try to push it to go faster or anything. Once he achieved that, he sighed and opened his eyes. The room was occupied by some women on the other side of the room talking to each other, probably staff of the place. He decided that his new task was to try to feel the energy of the people. He closed his eyes again and concentrated on his energy and tried to open his senses outside him. He was not getting anywhere until he heard a voice, and that voice made him feel like the owner for a second. It was a blur of energy. "Why can he sleep and I don't?" said a bossy girl's voice. The woman's voice sounded close to the girl. "Miss Sato, a lady should not be pointing at others." Ozai was having trouble to figure out the people around them. If it wasn't because they started to talk, he wouldn't have felt their energy. Then suddenly, he felt that once the energy was coming close, he somehow could identify it as it was getting closer. The energy that got closer was from a girl with long hair and probably at his same height. The girl started to walk around the Ozai and looked at him with curiosity. She saw the boy as soon as she entered the room. He was sitting in a weird position which caught her attention even more. The girl looked closer at his face to see him better, but the boy, still with his eyes closed, spoke, "Can I help you?" The girl screamed in surprise and fell. The boy extended his hand to help her get up and she took it. "Are you alright?" asked the half-Saiyajin. "Yes. I am, thank you," said the girl. Once she stood, she turned to Ozai. "You shouldn't be sleeping here." "I wasn't. I was training," said Ozai. The girl crossed her arms and raised one eyebrow. "Oh really? I heard that the airbenders trained that way. Are you one?" The young boy shook his head and the girl continued, "That's what I thought. You have way too much hair to be one." Ozai did not know how to answer that, so he only laughed a little. "Either way. Where is my manner?" "I have been talking without presenting myself," said the girl and then made a courtesy gesture. "Nice to meet you. My name is Asami Sato." The boy then stood up, made the Fire Nation greeting sign and bowed a little. "It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Asami Sato. My name is Ozai." Asami smiled when he played along. "So, what are you doing here, Ozai?" "I am waiting for the person responsible for me." "She is in a meeting now with the counselors," said Ozai. "The person responsible for you? You mean your parents?" "No. My parents are back home. Right now, I am traveling with a family friend, but she was called for a meeting." "I see. The person responsible for me is also there. But in this situation, he is my father. He is asking for permission to open another factory." Ozai listened and wondered, "A factory? Are you related to the Sato mobiles?" "Of course I am. We made them. Didn't my last name give you a hint?" said the girl teasingly and then giggled a bit. "I thought that you just shared the name," defended Ozai, but the girl dismissed it immediately. "We are trying to make better cars that are more affordable." The girl then proceeded to seek in her pockets until she took a small car toy. "This is the new project from Dad. It will go fast and will be comfortable for people to drive with their family. There will be no faster car." The girl then put the toy on the floor and then pushed it. Ozai saw the car move and stop soon after. He only turned to see the girl whose face was red. "The real car will be fast. This is just a toy. It's the motor inside that makes it fast." The boy couldn't help but laugh a little, which made the girl get redder. Ozai then looked at the car again, took the ball inside his pocket and let it roll close to the car. The ball passed the car and then Ozai took it again. "You know. The ball is also a toy but got further, you know why?" "Because it is not as heavy," said the girl, rolling her eyes. Ozai shook his head. "No. It's because, unlike the car, it does not fight against what's in front." "But there is nothing in front." "Air is in front." The shape of the car toy made the air stop it while the ball let the air pass to its sides. "It's like boats. The sailing ships use the air to let them move, but your car is fighting against it. So what? Do you want cars to have sails? That would be ridiculous. Why are you even?" "No. But it's what it is doing." The front of that car seems to be fighting against the air, just like the sails, commented Ozai. The girl grabbed the toy car and looked at it closely. The door of the room opened and Ty Lee entered. She looked around and found the boy she was searching for close to a girl, Ozai. The boy turned to see the old woman. Ty Lee smiled and said, I am afraid that we are leaving. Ozai nodded, bowed to the girl again with the Fire Nation sign. It was a pleasure, Asami Sato. The girl giggled and answered with a little courtesy, likewise, Ozai. When Ozai was close to Ty Lee, the old woman winked at the girl inside, and the girl did not know what that meant. While walking to the car, the old woman told the boy, I am sorry, but I called for the driver, I did not know you were having fun there. The boy only smiled and nodded. Once inside the Sato mobile, Ty Lee commented, you really are a heartbreaking boy. What, a new fruit? Ty Lee used the rest of the time in Republic City to train Ozai energy perception. Ty Lee was smiling happily, thinking that maybe he would be another person like her that is able to perceive the colors of the energy. Ozai was sat in the middle of the room in a lotus position with his eyes closed. Ty Lee was standing in front of him, so you said that you could perceive her until she got close to you and talked to you? Ozai nodded and the old woman started to think about the information. It seems that you already know how to expand the energy. Maybe not that far, but it won't be helpful in a fight unless you are faster than the other person. No difference from just seeing them. I know. Why don't you try to perceive the people of this building? At least the people on the same floor, suggested Ty Lee. Ozai turned to her and nodded and then again tried to concentrate, but then a growl sounded. Ty Lee laughed slightly, okay, we can eat first. Ty Lee ate her food like always, while Ozai ate his 30th plate. The old woman thanked that the cost of the food would be covered by Republic City. The hotel was one of the most important and prestigious in the country, but that contrasted with the image of the kid eating plate after plate, as if this was his last meal. Once Ozai finished his food, they went back to their room. Ozai was about to sit again, but Ty Lee stopped him. She pointed out that it was already too late and they needed to wake up early the next day. Ozai nodded and got to his room. There was a knock on the door and the old woman went to answer. The young teen entered his room and went directly to bed. He had a big smile, Mom, Dad, he whispered. This was the first time he had been this far from his parents and the longest time without seeing them. He was suddenly feeling homesick. He closed his eyes to imagine his parents. His father waved at him, hey Ozai, how was your training? Do you think you got stronger? Ozai chuckled at that. Then his mother appeared next to his father, with her hands behind her and with a stern look, could you explain to me what happened at the North Pole? You are still inexperienced from now on, you will be in a perpetual training regime until I deem it necessary. The only time you will stop training is to eat and sleep. Ozai stood up. Suddenly he was no longer so keen to go back. The next day arrived and Ozai, at some point, fell asleep. He was drooling all over his pillow when Ty Lee entered the room. Wake up that we have a long road ahead of us, shouted Ty Lee. Ozai woke up and looked out the window. The sky was reddish and he felt rejuvenated. He stretches a little and prepares himself to go. After another scary shift at the hotel's kitchen, Ozai and Ty Lee left the place inside a Sato mobile. This car would take them closer to Amashu and from there they would need to go by themselves. While in the car, Ty Lee wondered if it would be to take a ship from Amashu and get to the port in the Zoryu port in the South Sea. But the walk from Amashu to Tuzin may be good for Ozai. The trip was fast and it only took them a day to arrive. In the meantime, Ozai had tried to learn a little more about the energy. He tried to expand his energy, but he could only feel Ty Lee's and the driver's energy. When they arrived at Amashu, they went directly to a small building that was their hotel. Hey Ozai, did you know this city was once called like you? Ozai City. The name did not last, though, said the old woman when they walked in the streets. The car was not allowed inside as the city was not designed for vehicles to pass through their streets. They walk into one of the hotels. They got different rooms this time, but they were next to each other. That night Ozai tried again to meditate, with better luck. He was able to perceive the people in the next rooms. He could not identify them completely, but he could feel their presence. But then he felt an enormous presence far away and soon after, an earthquake happened. Ozai went and checked outside through the window of his room, but he found nothing, only people on the street, confused as him, looking to find out what happened. The whole earthquake was a reason for the citizen to be afraid due to the city's location. The next day, Ty Lee and Ozai leave the hotel, this time using a carriage. While in the carriage, Ty Lee saw a small family walking, and it made her remember a letter she received back in Republic City when they suddenly stopped. Their travel stopped less than an hour after leaving the city. In front of them, there was a giant root like that blocked the way. There were some people in front looking at the gigantic thing, most of them were traveling on a walk. Ty Lee had her eyes wide open, and Ozai went close and touched the root. He suddenly felt something from it, but did not know how to describe it. He turned to see Ty Lee, who smiled, good, it seems that you are progressing about sensing energy. Ozai nodded and looked at the route again. What is this? Are we close to the swamp? Kylie shook her head, not close enough. And the three there do not feel like this one. It is, perhaps, the opposite. Kylie wondered momentarily and then she smiled. What do you think? Should we investigate? Whatever this tree is, it seems it would help you with your training. Ozai shrugged, I guess. It can't hurt if we investigate and take a detour. Kylie smiled and went to the carriage driver to let him know that they would continue by walk. After they took their belongings, they started to walk to the east. The walk was calmed. Ozai could have gone further, but he stayed close to Kylie. On their way, they encountered some dead trees and animals. On their second day, they saw a tree far away. How big is that thing? Asked Ozai. Bigger than you can imagine, said the voice of another old woman. Long time without meeting you, Tiger Monkey. You have put some weight since the last time, said Toph Bifrong, standing at the top of the route. She jumped and landed in front of Tylee and Ozai. Hello Aunt Toph. Yeah, I have been wearing more heavy clothing, said Ozai obliviously. Toph and Tylee chuckled. Hello, Tylee, said Toph. The non-bender smiled and replied, Hi Toph. Long time no seeing you. It's been since what? When Lynn was 15. Speaking of which, I just saw her a couple of days ago. Toph smiled, that's good, but I guess we can talk about it while we walk to that tree. The other two nodded and started to walk in the direction of the tree. I was coming to see how far this route had gone to the west, commented Toph. We encountered it on our way to Tuzin from Amashu. And the route looked to continue with no end, so my guess is that it would go until the sea, said Tylee. Toph nodded and they continued walking until a family was in front of them. The family consisted of the father and the mother and 4 kids, 14, 12 and 2 6-year-old boys and 1 9-year-old girl. It was the mother who stepped up, so, did you find anything, mother? Toph only cleaned her ears, which made the other kids chuckle, more respect. The man spoke softly, Mother, we apologize, but the men are waiting to can work again. I am not your mother, sentenced Toph. Suffice to say, I was able to meet them and they told me that the route goes until the sea. We still don't know where the other routes have gone. The man nodded and walked back. Ozai followed him with his eyes and was able to see that there were a lot of people in a small camp. Toph sighed while the woman was telling her kid to follow their father. The woman turned back to her mother, so what is the next move, mother? Sayan. You must be patient, said Toph. It's easy for you to say. I am losing the faith of the people who came with me. And besides, who have you brought? Didn't I tell you to bring some help? How come you can't remember your favorite aunt, Sulan? Asked Tylee with a smile. The woman turned to see the old woman, do I know you? Yes, you do. I am the amazing aunt that gave you an amazing present when you were 9. Remember how you used it to eavesdrop on your sister Yin when she was on her date with Tenzin? Sayan frowned and then remembered, Aunt Tylee. The old woman only smiled and nodded. Sayan went and hugged her. After the hug, Sayan turned to see the boy standing there, and who are you supposed to be? It is nice to make you aquatic, my name is Ozai, said the boy with the fire greeting. Sayan smiled and greeted him with an earthbending greeting. I wished my kids were as educated as you. Well, at least Badr Jr. is. Now you know how I felt, said Toph. Sayan smiled and somehow Badr Jr. made her remember her older sister. It's been so long since they saw each other. The younger woman turned to see the boy, would you like to go with my family while we speak? About that. He will accompany me to investigate, said Tylee. Are you sure? It can be dangerous, said the younger woman. I am betting it will be. That's why he is coming, said the non-bender woman. They continued walking until they got closer to a small cliff that let them see a sad view. It was a small valley that seemed roofed with the branches and leaves above it. And in the center of it was a gigantic tree. It was closer or even bigger than the tree in the swamp. Around the tree was a deserted plain, dead trees and the corpses of some animals. I don't like this and I don't like people eavesdropping, get out of there, Tenzin said Toph. From the bushes, a tall bald man appeared. If your father could not hide from me, what made you think you could? Asked Toph. I was not hiding. I arrived from another direction than any of you. I have been following the roots of this tree. Sayan then asked, from where you started. A day ago, from the Siwang Desert. I was on my way to the Easter Air Temple. They nodded and Toph asked, anything you may want to say about what you saw? Nothing in particular. Just that everything seems to be dying around it. But it could be that it is passing through the desert. We did also find something similar, but we came from the other direction, wondered Tylee. Do you think the tree is eating the nutrients around? Asked Ozai to Toph. Instead of Toph answering, it was Tenzin, no. I think this is a call from the spirits. We have strayed way too much, thanks to the technology, and the spirits gave us another tree to make us remember our roots. Ozai did not know how to answer, but Toph did, that's even more cheesy than anything I have ever heard, and believe me, I have heard a lot while traveling with your parents. No, this tree does not feel like something from the spirit world. It doesn't even feel from this world at all," concluded Toph. Ailee nodded, "I don't know if it's from this world. But I have to go with Ozai's idea. It seems like the tree is absorbing the energy." "Absorbing? How does that could work?" asked Sayan. "I don't know, but the people who planted may. There are 6 people there inside it," said Toph and frowned. She was sure that there was something wrong with the tree. Everybody turned to see the giant tree, but Toph, nonchalantly, decided that the best way to approach them was with an attack. So, she produced an energy ball and launched it against the tree. The explosion made the place shake for a moment. Tenzin wanted to yell at Toph, but he contained his anger when he saw 3 light balls in their direction. Ozai took Tylee and helped her move away. Sayan used her earthbending to jump to one side, Tenzin his airbending jumped back. Toph stood there without moving. A big cloud of dust appeared where the energy clashed, and once it left, Toph was still there without a scratch. The rest were coughing from the dust, but then they saw 5 men floating in the air. 2 were small with big heads and purple skin, another 2 were taller and muscular than the other and had red skin, one with metallic armor and the other with a long hair with a ponytail. The last of them looked normal, wearing similar armor, but with a different color. All of them wearing a machine on their left ear. Ailee's face suddenly changed to worry and anger, "That armor." The man with a ponytail spoke, "Did you knock on the door?" Toph pointed at the man and yelled, "Remove that tree from our planet." The group of men laughed at Toph. The other red-skinned man said, "Let me warn you, the Shinsei can't be destroyed. It is eternal." Toph started to clean her ear as if nothing was happening. Yeah, you are bad and don't care about the others, yada yada. "I don't care." The first man again spoke, "Do you really want to die, old woman?" The rest of the men laugh. I had a bad premonition about that, and it did not help that Tylee was tense. Tenzin was with his hands under his robe but ready to fight, while Sayan was prepared to fight. Suddenly the men disappeared. The red-skinned with a ponytail attacked Toph, but she just moved to one side to avoid the punch. The other man with red skin but with metallic armor attacked Tenzin, who was sent flying against the rocks, but he used his airbending to avoid the clash. The 2 small men attacked Tylee and Ozai, who jumped back to avoid the energy to touch them. Tylee moved to one side opposite Ozai. The young teen avoided the attacks as fast as he could, nearly getting hit multiple times. He wanted to remove his weights to go more quickly, so he used his agility to send to remove the heavy clothes. He made a backflip, and his boot left his feet and went directly to his enemy's face. When the small man moved his hand to protect himself from the boots, in that instant, Ozai jumped him and kicked him in the stomach and sent him flying back. While the little man was still recovering, Ozai took that time to remove his undershirt, which also had weight. He was barely done when he saw the light coming in his direction and quickly dodged it by jumping high, and while doing it, he threw his wristbands. Once he landed, he jumped back against the small man, and now the fight looked even. Punches and kicks were blocked and received, but the difference was that Ozai was trying his best, while the small man was always smirking. Suddenly the tiny man disappeared and reappeared behind Ozai. When the young teen thought that he was done for, the body of the second small man appeared and helped Ozai escape. Ailee successfully clocked the man and then beat him, making him like a rag doll. Meanwhile, the red-skinned man with a ponytail still attacked Toph, who had her hands behind her back. She has not tried to attack once, she just has to dodge all the attacks. "You really are this weak, huh?" The words infuriated the man who attacked with all his might, but he was stopped when Toph only opened her leg a little more, and then the floor under the man moved, making him spin in the air. Right away, Toph stumped the floor, and a big rock column headed the man, sending him fly away. Toph stood there and murmured, "Go and tell your boss to stop hiding." On the other side, Sayan and Tenzin had problems with their opponents. Tenzin used his airbending to move away with difficulties as his opponent attacked him continuously, and especially, the most problematic was the armor that helped the man to go faster and counter his air attacks. Sayan was outmatched by her opponent, who was faster and more robust than her. Unlike her mother, her earthbending was not as fast or strong. Her only opportunity was to defend herself from the constant attacks. When Sayan was about to get hit, the man flew away after a strong wind passed in front of her. Suddenly Tenzin was close to her. "How about we trade enemies?" Sayan only nodded and jumped to fight her new enemy. Suddenly the armor of the red-skinned man opened and the man flew faster in her direction. A smirk appeared on Sayan's face as she used her metal bending to make the man stay on the floor, unable to move. "Now you will answer my questions," said Sayan. Tenzin had a better opportunity. The other man may be more muscular, but Tenzin's ability let him dodge every attack, and with the aid of his air bending, he could do it faster and attack him. Unfortunately for Tenzin, his opponent was desperate for the situation, making him throw a ball of energy. At the same time, Sayan's opponent used armor to counter her metal bending attack, took some distance, and then launched a ball of energy. When Sayan and Tenzin were about to receive the attack, the floor moved, and they could dodge it. Suddenly another ball of energy passed them, but this time was sent to attack the armored warriors. At the other side was Toph frowning, and suddenly, in the air, a man appeared. His physique was similar to Goku, except that his skin was pale and grey. The man was wearing armor identical to the others. Impressive, Grandma. I never thought there would be individuals like you here, said the Goku look-alike. Who are you? Do you want to avenge Frieza? Asked Toph. Frieza? No, we are not with him. Not anymore. But where are my manners? Let me introduce myself. My name is Tirisu. The one you beat first is Amando, said Tirisu, while pointing at his back where the red-skinned man appeared. Tirisu-sama, please let us fight with her, said the man with the metallic armor. We want to get back what she did, said the other man. Hakao, da plus u. Very well, but where are the twins Rakuse and Rizun? Asked Tirisu. Suddenly two bodies flew his way. The two small men were still alive but unable to move. Then Ty Lee and Ozai appeared behind Toph. Exclaimed Tirisu. Then Kakao frowned, extended his hand, and killed the two tiny men. There is no need for the weak. Good. It seems that we have spots available. What do you say? Would you want to be part of our group? Especially you, kid, Tirisu said while looking at Ozai with interest. You have so much potential. I will never go with someone as evil as you, screamed Ozai. Why do you look like Goku? I thought that the Saiyajins were all dead, said Ty Lee. You knew about Lord Frieza and the Saiyajins. That's a surprise, Tirisu smiled and continued. Well, if you want information, you must get to me first. Soon after, he said that the other three attacked. Ozai reacted quickly and launched a punch to his side, hitting him with the metal armor. Unfortunately for Ozai, his opponent flew high, and Ozai was still unable to fly like his parents. Unlike Ozai, Ty Lee did not move much. She did not waste her movements, and with great precision, she Chai blocked A plus U. Suddenly a great wind blew, and when Ty Lee turned, she saw Ozai jumping high to his opponent, and with his right hand, he punched the armor of Kakao, breaking it. The smile on Ozai's face was short-lived as he received a punch that sent him back to the floor. Fortunately, Ozai could land using his hands. Kakao was about to launch another attack, but Tenzin appeared behind him and kicked him to the floor. Using his air bending, Tenzin landed swiftly and then turned to Ozai. You fight bravely, kid, but it is time for you to go to a more secure place. After that, he went and continued the attack against Kakao. Sayan appeared and started to help Tenzin with Kakao. Ty Lee got close to him and smiled, don't listen to him. He doesn't know you. Ty Lee and Ozai went close to Toph again, who was face to face with Tirisu. The immobile body of Amando was lying on one side of Toph. Is he? Asked Ozai, but Toph only shook her head and answered, is alive. Then the old earthbender looked behind Tirisu and saw the giant tree. Ozai, did you keep training with your parents, correct? Asked Toph without leaving her eyes from the tree. Ozai nodded and Toph continued, well, you should be able to entertain this guy while I see how I can destroy this tree. Do you think you can escape, Grandma? Said Tirisu, but when he was about to attack Toph, Ozai jumped against him and punched him in the face. Unfortunately for Ozai, Tirisu did not receive any damage and just turned to him, very well. If you want to be the first to die, so be it. The old Saiyajin grabbed Ozai's arm, punched him in the stomach, and sent him flying back. Before going after Ozai, he smirked at Toph, you should know that you just killed that kid. Ozai, who had landed against a rock wall, stood up again. Almost immediately, Tirisu attacked him again, landing a knee on his stomach, then grabbed him and threw him into the air, followed by multiple attacks in the form of energy balls. Ozai could cover himself, but his body was full of wounds, and he fell to the cliff. Tirisu only saw the kid falling and laughed lightly. He turned to where he was and said, his death will be in your last regrets. Then he realized that only one old woman was still, and she was still with a small smile. Suddenly a tiny sound appeared, and when Tirisu turned in the direction of the sound, he received a kick to the face and was sent back. A panting Ozai was standing where Tirisu was a moment ago. The teen's shirt was destroyed, his arms and torso had a few bruises, and some blood started to fly, but he was still standing, ready to fight. Remember what you have been practicing, said Ty Lee. Ozai nodded and tried to feel his opponent's and his own energy. And he felt that his own energy was trying to explode out of his body. He did not realize that he had closed his eyes as he felt the energy coming in his direction. Ozai opened his eyes and moved away just in time to dodge the punch of Tirisu, but he could not avoid his kick. Ozai backflipped and then put his two hands in front of him and yelled at the top of his lungs, launching a ball of energy. Tirisu was surprised by the attack and barely dodged it, making the energy ball destroy part of the cliff. Amazing, it seems that you piqued my interest even more, kid, said the old Saiyajin. Suddenly the machine Tirisu was wearing in his ear beeped, but before he could check what it was, Ozai attacked him again with a kick in the ear, destroying the machine. That attack infuriated Tirisu, even when it was an old model, those things are not easy to acquire. The Saiyajin attacked Ozai again. He first defended himself from the attack the young teen was launching, and then he grabbed him by the neck, used his free hand to punch him, and then launched an energy attack to his stomach. Fortunately, Ozai could kick him in the chin and escape the grab. He then started to run. Tirisu flew high and started to launch a bunch of energy attacks indiscriminately. Ozai used this and began to jump over the other enemies, who received the attack entirely. Sayan and Tenzin were able to move away in time to not get the attack to touch them. Tirisu calmed himself and saw the big smoke screen. He waited for it to move away, and when it did, he flew down. Ozai was there, and it showed that some attacks hit him, as he was even more bruised and panting heavily. The old Saiyajin smirked and was about to walk in the teen's direction when he suddenly fell face first. "Okay, time's up," said Ty Lee, standing behind Tirisu. Ozai's face relaxed, and they looked at Ty Lee. The teen's arms dangled, and he could barely open his eyes. Ty Lee smiled at Ozai. "You did well, and certainly, you have grown up." Ozai smiled and then fell to the floor, exhausted. Inside the tree was Toph. She was thinking about how she could destroy the tree. She was not as strong as she used to be, and doubted that she could have earthbend a tree that big. She then felt the presence of someone entering the tree with her. "It took you too long to come," said Toph. The man did not answer her, and Toph only sighed heavily. After all those years, their pride had not let them say the word sorry to each other. The man scowled while looking at the fruit of the tree. Toph took one of the fruits on the floor. "I assume you know what kind of tree this is." "Shut up, woman," said the man, and then a golden aura appeared around him. He put his hand on the top of the tree and yelled, "Biguban Attaku." A bright yellow light appeared, and a ball of energy formed from Vegeta's hands passed through the tree, destroying it. Tenzin, Sayan, and Ty Lee saw the fantastic view of the tree being destroyed from the inside. Tiny spores started to fall from the sky, giving the impression that it was giving life back to the world. Sayan's family and followers were outside the valley, looking at the spectacular view. The people in the Eastern Air Temple were looking from the windows and the different balconies. The sandbenders were also captivated by the magnificent scenery that was happening. Toph was still standing in the same place, and when the man was about to leave, she said, "Sayan is here. Don't you want to say hi?" The man stopped. "She is happy with her family." After that, the man flew away at a fantastic speed. Sayan wondered about the ball of light that flew from the tree. Then she saw that it stopped suddenly, and then balls of energy were launched back to the valley, landing in the body of the invaders, making a hole in their stomachs. Sayan and Tenzin just covered their eyes with their forearm. When Sayan looked at the sky, the ball of light had disappeared. She then turned to look for her mom, who was walking with no scratches. Neither Ty Lee had any on her, but then she turned to see the young teen. The young earthbender got worried about him, but she was told that he was okay, just exhausted. The four of them walked to Sayan camp, with Ozai being hugged by Ty Lee, with Toph close to her. Ozai slept all morning, and his tent was visited by Sayan's kids, who were very curious about the new kid. When he finally woke up, he was offered to eat with them, and then Sayan realized her mistake. Ozai was hungry not only because he missed breakfast, but because of all the exercise he had done the day before. Plate after plate, Ozai devoured almost everything, leaving the entire family and the crew of people following Sayan amazed. After eating, he went with Ty Lee, who was talking with Toph. "Oh, you finally finished. Good, good. Your manners and fighting style may be like your mother, but when you start eating, it's when I remember who your father is," said Toph. Ty Lee laughed loudly. "Oh, tell me about it." Once Ty Lee calmed down, she hugged Ozai. "We will be going back tomorrow. If we leave now, we will arrive too late at night. You are going to Tuzin. I may walk with you. I haven't visited them in a while, and with the current news, I guess it's time to return there," said Toph. "I know, right?" said Ty Lee. I only watched them talking, not knowing about the news. "Perhaps it's about the fight. I can't wait to see them see your progress," said Ty Lee, caressing Ozai's hair. Suddenly she stopped and wondered aloud, "I feel that I'm missing something. I can't remember what, though." "If it's important, you will remember it eventually," said Toph dismissively. Ty Lee shrugged and walked back to her tent. After saying goodbye to Sayan and her family the next day, Ozai walked with Ty Lee and Toph to Tuzin. The walk took more time because the two older women were slow and talking constantly. The trip took them another 2 days, and on their second day, they finally were inside the Tuzin. At the entrance, the guard asked for their information. "Really? Why don't you go ahead and call your superior to know with who we are traveling?" said Toph, moving away so they could see Ozai. "He wants to go back home as soon as possible." The guard looked at Ozai. Everyone already recognized him because of his strength and because his family was influential and wealthy. Although no one knew why, they just knew they shared names with the founders and heroes. The guard moved and talked with another guard, who left running. "Apologize, could you give us another moment?" "Thank you." When the other guard returned, another man with a rickshaw said, please go in. Oh, I do ouch, my poor feet, interrupted Ty Lee. Oh, my back, exaggerated Toph. I only sighed, walked to the rickshaw, and helped the two old women go in. The trip was fast and calm. The city didn't seem to have changed from Ozai's perspective, but he could feel something different. His great adventure, although ending, made him feel nostalgic about the view he was looking at. When they finally arrived, the door was answered by one of the aides, who took them to the back garden where Goku was training with some push-ups, while Azula was drinking some tea. You finally came back. It was about time, said Azula with a stern face, but with a slight curl in her lips. Ozai smiled broadly and nodded. She then looked Ozai closely, and it seems that the training did help you. Oh, you are back, said Goku, who stood up and walked toward his son. He caressed Ozai's head and said, and wow, you have become stronger. What kind of training do you give him, Ty Lee? Did you also help, Toph? I helped nothing. I just met them on my way here, said Toph. Before saying if he is stronger or not, we need to confirm it. Ozai, prepare for a spar with me, said Azula. Ozai flinched but nodded. He took away the heavy clothing he was wearing. Goku frowned but still walked to the side with the other two older women. Mother and son were in their fighting stances. Azula suddenly disappeared and reappeared at Ozai's side with a kick. Still, the young teen was able to protect himself. Azula did not stop and started to attack with her hands, using her nails as claws. Ozai could move away from the attacks, but after every attack, Azula was getting faster until one attack cut Ozai's shirt. The young teen put more distance, but Azula got closer right away, and with her left hand, she sent a potent dire attack to her son's face. Ozai used that moment to move his mom's hand and try to counterattack, but she used her right hand and launched a fireball at him. Ozai received the attack but took space between the two again. When he saw her mom running in his direction, he sent a ball of energy in her direction. Azula did not stop her running, instead, she used her lighting attack and made it clash with the energy ball, making a big explosion with a big smoke screen. Ozai was coughing, and around was only dust, he could not see anything. He then closed his eyes. Suddenly a fist appeared close to him, but he felt his mother's energy, and he spun and kicked her on the shoulder, sending her fly back. Goku ran next to Azula, who was smirking. Ozai was surprised, he was able to kick his mother. Very good. It seems that you have improved, said Azula proudly. Goku helped her stand up and, in a low voice, told him, I can stand up myself. I am not fragile. Ozai drew a big smile on his face. That evening, the five of them were eating dinner. Goku and Ozai were having their average enormous amount of food. But suddenly, Goku said, you sure you don't want to eat more, Azula? Stop pestering me. I did not like it while Ozai, and neither would I like it with this one, said Azula with low patience. At that moment, Ozai started to listen more carefully. His dad was acting strange, but he did not know why. Did something happen? Ty Lee only giggled at the scene of Goku and Azula. Oh, let him pamper you. He is only happy you are pregnant. PFFFFT cough cough. Ozai suddenly threw the water that he was drinking. Azula looked at her son while he was trying to recover. Mom, is that true? Asked Ozai, excited. Of course. I told on the letter I sent you a few days ago, replied Azula. Oh, exclaimed Ty Lee. That's what I was forgetting, said Ty Lee, and then searched on her clothes, and then she took a letter and gave it to Ozai. Azula facepalmed and sighed. Anyway, said Toph to calm Azula. Do you know if it is a boy or a girl? I can help you with that. No need. I know already, Azula said as she rubbed her belly. Is going to be a Saiyajin. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.